Chapter 674. An ear-piercing sound was heard. The materialized sound waves were like sharp blades that cut in all directions. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of metal clashing could be heard in the void. It was the sound of the terrifying sound waves hitting the dark-skinned young man's body. The sound caused the surrounding air to explode, but it still could not break through the dark-skinned young man's defense. Everyone's hearts trembled. The dark-skinned young man was too powerful. No one in the younger generation could compare to his defense. It's useless. Stop struggling. You can't break through my defense. The dark-skinned young man looked into the void and sneered disdainfully. The golden-haired young man snorted coldly, and a trace of anger appeared on his handsome face. Then, his expression turned cold, and his eyes emitted a sharp aura. The golden light on his body flickered even more, like a golden sun. He was angry. He was really angry. The golden-haired young man did not plan to drag this out any longer. He decided to use his trump card to quickly end the battle. The golden-haired young man was like an angry lion. He planned to use his trump card to quickly end the battle. At the center of his brows, a golden rune shone. Balls of golden light rippled out like ripples. A sharp and terrifying aura surged out and instantly rushed to the entire arena. The golden light was like auspicious clouds that covered the sky. It was also like balls of burning flames that were dancing. At this moment, the golden rune between the golden-haired young man's eyebrows shone as if a third eye had opened. It was extremely strange. The surrounding people's hearts trembled, and they could not breathe. This power was too powerful, and it made them feel despair. Even the venerable ones were shocked. Their eyelids twitched because this power was enough to threaten them. Lin Xian's expression was also solemn. His prediction was right. The golden rune between the golden-haired young man's eyebrows definitely had the power of a venerable one. This was the only young man he had seen who was not a venerable one and had not condensed a true martial soul, yet had the power of a venerable one. Therefore, he paid extra attention to this young man. In the arena, the dark-skinned young man stopped smiling. He naturally felt the terrifying aura emitted by his opponent. That aura made all the muscles in his body tremble slightly. This was something that had never happened before. It would only happen when he faced a venerable one. Impossible. Does he have the power of a venerable one? The dark-skinned young man was shocked, and a trace of horror appeared in his eyes. Taking a deep breath, he activated the ancient inscriptions on his body with all his might. Although his opponent's aura was terrifying, he had absolute confidence in his defense. Therefore, he did not plan to dodge and chose to take the attack head-on. Golden runes flickered, and a golden light soared into the sky, rushing towards the black-skinned youth. It was too fast, so fast that no one could react. In the next moment, the black-skinned young man let out a painful roar. His entire body was like a huge mountain as he fell backwards. A bloody hole the size of a fist appeared in his chest, shattering the black inscriptions on his body and piercing through his body. The dark-skinned young man fell to the ground, his hands clutching his chest, his face filled with fear. Penetrated. His strongest defense had actually been penetrated by someone. Moreover, this attack was too terrifying. If it had been a little more to the side, it would have hit his heart. At that time, he would definitely not have been able to survive. The black-skinned young man suddenly raised his head and looked at the golden shadow in the sky. He was terrified. His defense was strong, and at the same time, he had ancient inscriptions. No one below the venerable one level could break it. Therefore, in this competition, he was aiming to be the champion of the Alliance combat meet. Because in his opinion, as long as the venerable one did not make a move, no one of the same level could break his defense. Therefore, he was in an invincible position. However, he did not expect the golden-haired youth in front of him to have such terrifying strength. He could actually penetrate his strongest defense. Seeing the golden runes between his opponent's eyebrows flicker again, the black-skinned young man's body trembled. He quickly admitted defeat and did not dare to fight again. The 100,000 spectators were silent. Then, they burst into earth-shattering cheers. Exciting. It was really too exciting. They did not expect the golden-haired youth to be so powerful. He was definitely a hot favorite to win the championship. In addition to the excitement of the battles, there were also shocking bets in the arena. The bets of this alliance combat meet were to bet on who would be the final champion. In an instant, countless people placed their bets on the golden-haired youth. It could not be helped. The golden-haired youth could even penetrate his strongest defense. No one could compare to his combat strength. This guy is indeed a difficult opponent. Shun Yaotian looked at the golden-haired youth in the air with a solemn expression. Zhu Yu also opened his eyes. His eyes exploded with a shocking light. However, he did not look at the golden-haired youth. Instead, he stared at Lin Xian. Because the next battle was his. He wanted to kill Lin Xian in the arena with his own hands to avenge his brother. In the next moment, his body swayed and lightning wings formed behind him. He quickly landed on the arena. Lin Xian, come out and die. This voice was like a tsunami, shaking the surroundings. Lin Xian sneered. Like a sword beam from the 9 heavens, he instantly appeared in the arena. Brat, I will kill you with my own hands to avenge my brother. Zhu Yu gritted his teeth, his body surging with killing intent. Your brother sought his own death. You can't blame others. As for you, if you don't get lost, you will end up like your brother. Don't be arrogant. If my brother wasn't careless and didn't use his earth-rank martial arts and bloodline power, you wouldn't have succeeded. Today, I will show you the power of the Divine Bird Palace's earth-rank martial arts and bloodline power. Zhu Yu roared. Streaks of blood-red lines appeared on his body, like ferocious little dragons that swam quickly. A powerful aura erupted and swept across the entire area. Above his head, endless spiritual chi gathered and condensed into 3 divine birds, circling and roaring. The 3 heads of the crimson bloodbirds flickered. The 3 heads were the size of mountains. Their cold eyes looked down and exuded an aura comparable to that of a venerable. At this moment, the 3 heads were all staring at Lin Xian. Cold killing intent reverberated in the surroundings, like an invisible divine spear that wanted to pierce through people. It had to be said that Zhu Yu was very powerful. After he used his bloodline power, his aura was no weaker than that of the golden-haired youth. At this moment, all the elites looked at the divine bird's shadow with solemn expressions. This was because no one was confident that they could withstand this attack. The dark-skinned youth was even more shocked. His body trembled slightly, which meant that the aura could also break through his defense. Damn it, what kind of monsters are these? The dark-skinned youth was furious. He thought that his absolute defense was invincible, but he didn't expect that there would be elites who could break through his defense one after another. Little thief, tremble under my bloodline power. I will use your head as a sacrifice to my brother. Zhu Yu's expression was cold, like a killing god. Chapter 675. Not bad. You're very strong. You've surpassed most of the geniuses and even reached the venerable realm, Lin Xian said softly as if he was commenting. However, it's not enough. You don't even have a 10% chance of winning against me. Because I only need 1 sword to deal with you. Lin Xian's voice was calm as if he was talking about something trivial. Then, he slowly pulled out the wind shadow sword. Everyone was shocked and started discussing. The venerables frowned, and the 2 venerables from the Divine Bird Palace looked gloomy. Logically speaking, they wouldn't believe Lin Xian's words because Zhu Yu was definitely the top warrior among the geniuses. No one in the same realm could defeat him. However, Lin Xian was too calm. That wasn't the attitude a warrior of the same realm should have. It was more like he was looking down on his opponent. It was as if a dragon was looking at an ant, overlooking the other party. However, they didn't believe that Lin Xian had that kind of power. In the previous battle, they didn't sense a real martial soul from Lin Xian. Therefore, they didn't stop the competition but chose to believe Zhu Yu. Lin Xian's words shocked everyone and made Zhu Yu furious. After using the power of his bloodline, he could even fight with a venerable realm expert. How dare his opponent look down on him? He was courting death. Go to hell. Zhu Yu shouted angrily. He waved his hands and slammed them down. The power of his bloodline surged and the shadow of the 3-headed vermilion blood bird hovered above his head. With a long cry, it soared into the sky and fell toward Lin Xian. Although the three-headed vermilion bloodbird was formed by spiritual power, it looked real. Its colorful feathers shone brightly and were crystal clear like gems. On its surface, flames danced and lightning intertwined, emitting a terrifying aura. It flapped its wings, bringing with it monstrous flames and lightning. The surrounding wind blew violently as if the void was about to collapse. In an instant, it arrived in front of Lin Xian. Its three terrifying heads spewed out lightning, flames, and wind. The three intertwined to form an energy storm that raged in the air. This power was too strong. It was infinitely close to the venerable realm. Everyone cried out in alarm, their hearts trembling. Lin Xian smiled disdainfully and quickly slashed out with his wind shadow sword. Wind and thunder roared as the sword struck out. The void boiled, an endless sword light soared into the sky, roaring ferociously. The sword light was resplendent and turned into a huge dragon that roared at the sky. He charged forward like a true dragon descending into the world, majestic and extraordinary. Then, he struck out with his dragon claws. Waves of spiritual energy surged in the air, and the space was torn apart. The phantom of the divine bird was severely injured in an instant, torn apart by the terrifying dragon claw. Then, with a swing of the dragon's tail, the three crimson bloodbirds were shattered. This is impossible. Zhu Yu was shocked, as though he had seen a ghost. His handsome face was distorted beyond recognition. He did not believe that his bloodline power would be shattered by a single sword strike. The 100,000 spectators also cried out in surprise. This sword was too stunning, completely exceeding their expectations. The faces of the two venerables from the Divine Bird Palace changed greatly. A look of horror appeared in their eyes, and they had a very bad premonition. The two of them looked at each other and quickly soared into the sky. Zhu Yu was the most outstanding prodigy in this team, and he was also an extremely talented disciple of the Divine Bird Palace. They would not allow anything to happen to Zhu Yu. The two venerables moved quickly, but the sword light in the void was even faster. The true dragon roared and turned from a huge dragon into a sword light. It was like a divine rainbow, shining and dazzling. In an instant, it arrived in front of Zhu Yu and slashed him. No! 3 roars sounded. One of them was from Zhu Yu, and the other 2 were from the venerables of the Divine Bird Palace. They had already lost a prodigy, and they would not allow anything to happen to Zhu Yu. Zhu Yu also roared to the sky, burning his bloodline power, and at the same time, using an earth-rank martial art to protect himself. He had already seen the 2 elders rushing over. As long as he could withstand this sword strike, he would be safe. However, he still underestimated the power of this sword strike. Lin Xian had already condensed a true martial soul, and his strength was comparable to a venerable's. His sword strike was equivalent to a venerable's attack, and ordinary prodigies could not resist it. In just an instant, Zhu Yu's protective divine skill was torn apart, and the next moment, he was cut in half. Damn it! I'm going to kill you. The 2 venerables of the Divine Bird Palace seemed to have gone crazy, like injured beasts. They roared crazily, causing the entire arena to tremble. The 2 of them had indeed gone crazy. This scene was exactly the same as when Zhuning died, and they could only watch helplessly, unable to change anything. That was a peerless prodigy, a genius who could become a king in the future. However, he had died just like that. The 2 venerables kept beating their chests and wailing. "Kid, I want you dead." One of the venerables roared crazily and punched out. The terrifying fist was like a huge mountain, quickly descending on the arena. This punch was too fast and too sudden. The other venerables tried their best to block it, but they were still a step too late. The terrifying fist carried an incomparably powerful force, directly shattering the void, breaking the light curtain, and crashing towards Lin Xian. This was the power of the venerable realm. It was so powerful that it directly caused the world to collapse. The 100,000 spectators exclaimed. They were all worried for Lin Xian. Such a violent punch was likely to turn Lin Xian into a bloody mist. No one doubted this result, not even the prodigies. They all watched the battle with solemn expressions. Looking at the terrifying fist rushing towards him, Lin Xian snorted coldly and quickly slashed out with the wind shadow sword in his hand. At this moment, he did not hold back at all. The power of the sword soul was released like a peerless divine sword, piercing through heaven and earth. This aura was too sharp, as if 100,000 divine swords were roaring, causing the entire world to tremble violently. At this moment, the wind and clouds changed, and the world lost its color. The weapons of 100,000 martial artists trembled and pointed towards the center as if they were worshipping a king. The terrifying sword aura caused everyone's expression to change. Boom! The sword light was dazzling, and the cold light was dazzling. When the sword slashed onto the fist, a shocking wave of energy erupted and swept in all directions. At this moment, the venerables of the three top forces took action one after another, forming a light curtain to protect the 100,000 spectators and the arena. Otherwise, the violent energy storm would definitely be able to destroy everything within a 500-mile radius. An earth-shattering explosion sounded like thunder from the ninth heaven. The violent energy aura slammed in all directions, colliding with the light curtain formed by the venerables and shaking it back. In the end, the energy formed pillars of energy that rushed into the sky and shattered the clouds above. Seeing that the terrifying energy had disappeared, the crowd heaved a sigh of relief. Then, they eagerly looked towards the arena. They saw that the entire super arena had been torn apart. Countless terrifying cracks appeared on it, and there were even terrifying huge pits everywhere. A figure floated above the arena. He was wearing bright red battle armor and holding a long sword in his hand. He looked like the rebirth of the sword god. Lin Xian, he's not dead. What? He resisted the attack of a venerable? How is that possible? At this moment, everyone was stunned. Not to mention the prodigies, even the venerables were stunned. Chapter 676. A martial artist at the peak of the spirit-detecting realm was actually able to resist a first-level honorable. This was definitely a fantasy. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. The honorable realm and the spirit-detecting realm are not on the same level. No one can break this rule. Many people shook their heads in disbelief. Martial soul. It's the power of a martial soul. Lin Xian has condensed a real martial soul. However, those honorables exclaimed because they felt the real power of a martial soul in that sword strike. Once the news was out, everyone was shocked. He had actually condensed a martial soul. He had the power of a honorable. This was too powerful. One had to know that those geniuses only had the embryonic form of a martial soul and belonged to the half-step honorable realm. Although Lin Xian's cultivation was only at the peak of the spirit-detecting realm, he had condensed a real martial soul and his combat strength was comparable to a honorable. In other words, Lin Xian had completely surpassed the geniuses of his generation. He was above everyone and was on par with a real honorable. Condensing a martial soul at the age of 18, this was definitely a magnificent feat that no one had ever achieved before. Those geniuses looked at Lin Xian with shock. Among them, He Muya's face was pale and his body was trembling. The two honorables of the Divine Bird Palace had dark faces and murderous auras. They had completely underestimated Lin Xian's strength and talent. This youth could definitely become a king. This kid can't be left alive, or he'll definitely be a huge problem for the Divine Bird Palace. The killing intent in their hearts was overwhelming. They could not wait to kill Lin Xian, but the venerable ones from the other forces in the arena stopped them, so they could not make a move at all. The two honorables of the Divine Bird Palace had cold expressions and retreated without a word. They had already made up their minds to set up a blockade around the arena. They definitely wouldn't let Lin Xian escape. Lin Xian's display of the power of an honorable shocked everyone. He glanced around and said coldly, "All of you, come at me together." This voice was too arrogant. He wanted to fight against all the geniuses alone. If it was before, it would be impossible and everyone would only treat it as a joke. But now, no one dared to laugh. Because Lin Xian had condensed a sword soul and possessed the strength of an Exalt realm expert, so he was absolutely qualified to speak such words. Those sky prides had ugly expressions on their faces. Their eyes were filled with complicated emotions. The golden-haired youth's eyes were cold. The golden rune between his eyebrows flickered, and his body was full of fighting spirit. On the other side, Shen Yaotian was gnashing his teeth. His expression was ferocious, and his eyes were filled with intense jealousy. Damn it, he really condensed a martial soul. How could this be? This is impossible. First place should be mine. Shen Yaotian roared in his heart. Especially when he heard Lin Xian's words, he was so angry that he almost vomited blood. In the arena, those older generation elders also looked at each other with complicated expressions. Originally, it would take a few more matches to determine the champion, but now it seemed that there was no need for that at all. The strength displayed by Lin Xian was too terrifying. He could definitely suppress all of the youths present. Therefore, they had originally planned to announce the results directly and let Lin Xian become the champion. However, they did not expect Lin Xian to be even more direct. He actually asked all the Sky Prides to attack together. I'll fight you. The golden-haired youth's voice was cold. He soared into the sky, his body shining with golden light. His golden hair fluttered in the wind, making him look like a golden god of war. In an instant, he arrived in the void. The golden rune between his eyebrows flickered and shot out a ray of golden light. He did not dare to be careless when facing Lin Xian, so he used his strongest trump card right away. The golden rune between his eyebrows flickered like a third eye and quickly opened. The golden light was dazzling, and as fast as lightning, it instantly streaked across the void. The golden light was extremely powerful. Back then, it had shattered the black-skinned youth's strongest defense. It could be said that this power was not much different from that of an Exalt Realm expert. In an instant, the golden light surged like a golden wave. Lin Xian stabbed out with his sword. The huge sword chi was like a rainbow, gliding through the air like a meteorite. The two collided, but there was no shocking explosion. It was as if ice and snow had met a raging fire. They were in a stalemate in the air, making sizzling sounds. Although the golden light was powerful, it could not withstand the sword chi with the dragon sword soul and was instantly cut apart. The sword chi surged like a dragon swinging its tail and sent the golden-haired youth flying. I'll give you a chance. If you can make me take half a step back, I'll give up this championship. Lin Xian looked around and said loudly, You have 5 breaths of time to consider. If you don't make a move after 5 breaths, the championship is mine. Hearing that, the 100,000 spectators below were shocked. Lin Xian was too domineering. He did not take the Sky Pride seriously at all. In a private room that looked like a small palace on the 4th floor, a middle-aged scholar with a yellowed book in his hand said with a smile, This kid is a little interesting. What's the point? He just wants to see the young mistress. All men are the same. Ling pursed her lips with a look of disdain. In the middle, a woman in white was like a fairy descending. She was extremely beautiful. Her eyes flickered with a hint of surprise. Lin Xian was indeed beyond her expectations. At least, she did not expect him to condense a sword soul. Not bad. Maybe he'll be able to compete with those people after a few years of growth. Young mistress, don't flatter him. How can he compare with those people? Not to mention his influence, his own strength is not enough, Ling said with a pout. She had suffered a loss at the hands of Lin Xian and still held a grudge. Now that she saw Lin Xian's arrogant face, she was naturally unhappy. Let's not talk about his influence. His strength is indeed inferior, but his talent is definitely not inferior to those people. If we can pull him to our side, our chances of winning will be much higher. This kid is really good. He condensed a martial soul at such a young age. His future is limitless, the middle-aged scholar said. However, it seems that the people of the Divine Bird Palace want to kill him. I wonder if he can escape this disaster. Ling invite him here after the competition, the white fairy said softly. Got it. Ling did not dare to disobey the order, but the displeasure on her face was very obvious. Below, the 4 geniuses had complicated expressions as they made the final decision. Soon, the 4 of them had the same idea and quickly soared into the sky. The 4 geniuses wanted to join forces to attack Lin Xian. Heimuya was among them as well. He gritted his teeth with a ferocious look on his face. Even though he couldn't defeat Lin Xian in a one-on-one fight, The 4 geniuses combined were enough to fight against a true honorable. Therefore, he was confident that he could join forces with the other 3 geniuses to suppress Lin Xian. You're very strong, but too conceited. The 4 of us together can suppress you. The blond young man's expression was cold. I've never tried to suppress a venerable before. I'm looking forward to it. The dark-skinned young man revealed a mouthful of snow-white teeth. His injuries had mostly healed. At this moment, he was staring at Lin Xian with an unfriendly expression. Chapter 677. I'll suppress you later. Let's see if you can still be so arrogant. Xin Yaoyan's body shone with 108 starry halos. He stared at Lin Xian fiercely, wanting to tear him apart. The 4 of them attacked from all directions, using their strongest moves. A golden light flashed and tore through the sky. It was like a golden spear that pierced through the air. On the other side, ancient inscriptions jumped and formed a ferocious demonic bear. It roared at the sky, and its voice tore through the sky. 108 starry halos shone and condensed into a mysterious starry sky map that pressed down on Lin Xian. The starry sky map was incomparably vast. It was like a real starry sky that carried terrifying power. In the end, He Muya also gritted his teeth and roared, using his strongest attack. The small black tree rotated and formed a black ball of light. It quickly surged out like the water of the underworld river. The 4 great geniuses attacked and exploded the space. The vast and unparalleled energy caused the void to boil and quickly drown Lin Xian. Fortunately, the 4 supremacies had joined forces to form a light screen that protected the tea house well. Otherwise, it would have been reduced to ashes long ago. The 100,000 spectators exclaimed. The attack was too powerful. The 4 great geniuses could definitely contend against a supremacy. Lin Xian had only condensed his martial soul and was not a real supremacy. Could he block this attack? Everyone held their breaths and watched carefully. The 4 great geniuses joined forces and released a terrifying attack that drowned Lin Xian. The 4 of them were too terrifying. They could suppress a supremacy. Lin Xian unleashed the power of his sword soul. He waved his long sword and condensed a demonic red lotus in the air that quietly bloomed. The red lotus floated in the air, tender and beautiful. Every petal was crystal clear and contained the power of the sword soul. Then, it soared into the sky and spun rapidly, forming streaks of sword chi that slashed in all directions. Each streak of sword chi was as thick as a mountain. They were like angry dragons that roared at the sky. The void surged and countless waves of air rolled like the waves of the sea, slapping in all directions. The sword chi was incomparably sharp. It was like a peerless divine sword that slashed down quickly. Boom. Puff. 108,000 streaks of sword chi shot out in all directions like a rain of light, slicing through the combined attacks of the 4 supreme prodigies. Everything happened too quickly. In the blink of an eye, the combined attacks of the 4 geniuses were shattered, turning into spirit chi that floated in the air. After that, the 4 of them coughed out blood and were sent flying. With one sword, the 4 geniuses had been defeated. Everyone was dumbfounded. There were no words to describe their feelings. Lin Xian was like a peerless sword god. His sword shook the heavens and repelled all the prodigies. At this moment, his figure was deeply imprinted in the hearts of many martial artists. Even 100 years later, there were still people who mentioned this battle. Lin Xian defeated the 4 prodigies with a single sword strike and became the champion of this year's martial competition. At the same time, he also obtained the champion's reward, 10 million medium-grade spirit stones, a divine dream bone, and a chance to see heavenly daughter Morong. Each of these 3 rewards was enough to make people excited. Lin Xian was also excited. This was because he could finally obtain the divine dream bone. It was a key material to make the Red Lotus armor. As long as he continued to collect it, he believed that there would be a day when he could make the true Red Lotus armor. After placing the divine dream bone and 10 million medium-grade spirit stones into his storage belt, Lin Xian smiled with satisfaction. And at this time, in a private room on the 4th floor, a small and cute girl appeared. She lightly humphed and pouted at Lin Xian, saying, "Hey, My family's miss invites you in. You again? Lin Xian smiled as he saw the young girl. I say, can your attitude be a bit better this time? Humph, you bastard. You want me to treat you with respect? Dream on. As Ling thought of the last time she suffered at Lin Xian's hands, she was driven mad with anger. She clenched her teeth and whispered, that damned bastard. If you have the ability, then refuse again. But this time, she was disappointed. This was because Lin Xian didn't refuse. Instead, he readily agreed. Ling gnashed her teeth in anger at Lin Xian's response. She wished she could pounce on him and bite him. The reason Lin Xian did the same this time was because he was really curious. Just how beautiful was the legendary Murong fairy that she could make countless geniuses go crazy for her. Moreover, he needed to use the Murong fairy's name to intimidate the divine bird palace so that they wouldn't dare to make a move. This way, he would have time to react. Under countless envious and jealous gazes, Lin Xian followed Ling into a private room that looked like a palace. As soon as they entered, Lin Xian saw a fairy-like woman. Although her beautiful face was covered by a white veil, Lin Xian could tell from her hazy silhouette that she was absolutely a peerless beauty. No wonder so many geniuses went crazy for her. Just her figure alone was enough to make them infatuated and unable to extricate themselves. Lin Xian's great dragon sword soul wandered around in his body, allowing him to maintain a clear mind. Then, the corners of his mouth rose slightly. I've long heard that the Murong fairy is as beautiful as a fairy. Now that I've seen it, it's really extraordinary. Murong Qingqing looked at Lin Xian in surprise. Lin Xian's eyes were too clear, without a trace of impurity. One had to know that when those warriors saw her in the past, they were all dumbfounded. Even those geniuses weren't spared. But Lin Xian was different. Although he was also admiring her, he maintained an absolute clarity of mind. This made the middle-aged scholar beside him exclaim in admiration. Lin Gongzi is a young genius. How admirable. May I know where your master came from? Murong Qingqing asked. Her voice was very pleasant, like the sound of nature. My master lives in the mountains and is not famous. Even if I tell you, you won't know. Lin Xian laughed. If he lives in the mountains, then he must be a reclusive expert. Murong Qingqing thought to herself. At the same time, she realized that perhaps Lin Xian didn't have a powerful background. Thinking of this, she smiled slightly. I wonder if Lin Gongzi is willing to follow me and step onto the peak of martial arts? Follow you? Lin Xian was stunned. You mean to marry into the Murong family? Although you're very beautiful, isn't it a little too soon to talk about marriage the first time we meet? Murong Qingqing, the middle-aged scholar, Ling the three of them were stunned, as if they were petrified. Murong Qingqing's face turned red. Although there was a veil between them, Lin Xian could still feel her shyness. It was as if her every frown and smile could mesmerize people. Ling screamed, "Talk your head, despicable bastard. Why are your thoughts so dirty? I'm so angry." She bared her fangs and brandished her claws, constantly rubbing her canine teeth. Beside her, the middle-aged scholar also laughed loudly, as if he had heard the most interesting thing. Lin Xian rubbed his nose helplessly. What? Did I say something wrong? Lin Gongzi, I think you've misunderstood. I meant to say that you'll join my faction. Murong Qingqing's expression returned to normal, but her voice was still a little unnatural. I see. Lin Xian pursed his lips. Then what you said just now was so tempting, about stepping onto the peak of martial arts together. I thought it was about dual cultivation. Chapter 678. So that's how it is. I thought it would be dual cultivation. Ling rolled her eyes. She wished she could strangle Lin Xian to death. Murong Qingqing's expression was also unnatural. Her body was slightly stiff because no one had ever dared to joke with her like this. Lin Gongzi, what do you think? Very quickly, Murong Qingqing regained her composure. There were no longer any fluctuations in her expression. I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. Currently, I have no plans to join any power. Furthermore, I still have things to do. Lin Xian shook his head. That was because he had to go to the Palace of Gods of War to find his father. Furthermore, Murong Qingqing's identity was too special. Being with her would probably attract a lot of unnecessary trouble. Although Lin Xian had condensed his martial soul, he did not want to attract unnecessary trouble. Therefore, he rejected her. Lin Xian's reply shocked the three people in the room once again. You dare to reject my young miss request? Ling immediately roared angrily. You bastard. Is there something wrong with your brain? Do you know how many people in the Tianwu continent are racking their brains to join us? I think you're just a country bumpkin from the mountains. The middle-aged scholar also reminded him, Kid, this is a rare opportunity. You have to think carefully. Murong Qingqing did not speak. Her eyes shone with a strange light. No one had ever been able to reject her. However, this youth in front of her had easily rejected her. Not only that, every decision of Lin Xian surprised her. It was as if this youth in front of her did not act according to the rules. You don't have to rush to answer. You can slowly think about it. Once you've thought it through, it won't be too late to give me an answer. Murong Qingqing was not angered by Lin Xian's rejection. Instead, she became more and more curious about this youth in front of her. I wonder what young master plans to do next. Will you continue to stay in Quicksand City, or? There's no reason for me to stay in Quicksand City. Next, I might make a trip to the Palace of Gods of War. Palace of Gods of War? Murong Qingqing nodded slightly. According to the information she received, Lin Xian was indeed in contact with a venerable one from the Palace of Ares. As for how deep the relationship between Lin Xian and the Palace of Ares was, she had no idea. It just so happens that we're also leaving Quicksand City, and it's on the way. Why don't we go together? Murong Qingqing smiled. This smile was like 100 flowers blooming at the same time, making the world lose its color. It was as if the white-robed fairy had become the only thing in the world. Linger and the middle-aged scholar were surprised. They did not expect Murong Qingqing to make such a decision. Even Lin Xian was surprised, but he quickly smiled and agreed. Because this way, he could get rid of the two venerables of the Divine Bird Palace. He believed that with Murong Qingqing by his side, the people of Divine Bird Palace would not dare to make a move. All of Lin Xian's belongings were placed inside his storage ring. The Snow White Monkey and the Crimson Dragon were also placed inside his demonic beast pouch. Moreover, Nan Gongseng and the others had already made arrangements, so he could leave Quicksand City at any time. The group walked out of the room and prepared to leave. A 7-colored rainbow appeared under Murong Qingqing's feet, carrying her through the void like a bridge. At this moment, she was like a fairy descending, beautiful beyond compare. Goddess Murong, it's Goddess Murong. At this moment, the audience below had yet to leave. When they saw the fairy in the sky, they immediately exclaimed. Countless people looked up, mesmerized. The geniuses clenched their fists, looking excited. Murong Qingqing, one of the most beautiful women in the Tianwu continent, was also a disciple of the House of Kings. Her status was definitely extraordinary. This was the dream of countless warriors, and now she was right in front of them. However, these geniuses could not get excited, because there was another person standing beside Murong Qingqing. A young figure, stepping on the shadow of a divine sword, stood with his hands behind his back. He looked calm, as if the sword god had been reborn. This figure was naturally Lin Xian. When he and Murong Qingqing stood together, they really looked like a golden couple. The people below recognized Lin Xian, and they were all envious. In their opinion, if they could gain the favor of Murong Qingqing, they would not have to worry about their lives. The people of the Divine Bird Palace looked worried, especially the two venerables, whose faces were extremely gloomy. They originally wanted to attack, but Murong Qingqing's appearance forced them to stop their plan. Damn little thief. He actually got together with the people of the Murong family. What should we do? Do we still have to attack? Of course we have to. You have to pay the price for killing the people of the Divine Bird Palace. Do you think you are safe with Murong Qingqing? What a joke. The two venerables of the Divine Bird Palace whispered, their eyes flashing coldly. Then, the two disappeared quickly, as if they were carrying out some plan. Lin Xian left a message to Nan Gongseng, telling them to develop well here, while he quickly left Quicksand City with Murong Qingqing and the others. Among these people, except for Ling who was still in the spirit detecting stage. Lin Xian and the other two were all in the venerable stage. In particular, Murong Qingqing's aura was very faint, but Lin Xian could clearly sense that the woman in front of him was in the venerable stage. Unlike him, she had not only condensed a martial soul, but also her cultivation was in the venerable stage. This made him deeply shocked. She is indeed a genius. She is really strong and her strength is so terrifying. He estimated that if he fought with Murong Qingqing, he would probably not be able to defeat her. This gave him a new understanding of the House of Kings. There was probably such a person in the Divine Bird Palace, but she might not have come this time. However, Lin Xian was not discouraged. Although Murong Qingqing was young, she was obviously in her 20s, and he was only 18. He was probably the only one who had condensed a martial soul at this age. The group was very fast. It did not take long for them to leave Quicksand City and arrive at the Sunset Desert. After passing through the desert, they would leave the sand region. According to the performance of the geniuses from other regions, the sand region seemed to be a relatively backward region in the Tianwu continent. Even so, the development of martial arts in this place had long surpassed the Tianan region. Lin Xian really did not know how prosperous the other regions of the Tianwu continent were. He was looking forward to it. He stepped on the sword shadow and flew quickly. Suddenly, the air under his feet fluctuated and rippled. A strange force appeared out of thin air and instantly enveloped him. The next moment, the space twisted and took him away. Not good. Murong Qingqing and the other two's expressions changed. They had not noticed anything strange before. Beside them, the middle-aged scholar snorted and suddenly attacked. The wind from his palm was fierce, and the wind was strong. It turned into a terrifying palm and grabbed forward. The void shattered and trembled incessantly. However, Lin Xian had disappeared without a trace. Damn it! It should be the two old guys from the Divine Bird Palace. The middle-aged scholar's expression was cold, and his eyes were like lightning. Chapter 679. Lin Xian's sudden disappearance shocked Murong Qingqing and the other two. Damn it! It's those two old guys from the Divine Bird Palace, the middle-aged scholar said in a low voice. Uncle Guangzhong, can you find them? Murong Qingqing asked. The middle-aged scholar carefully sensed, and then shook his head slightly. I can't sense them. Judging from the situation just now, they must have used some kind of strange formation. But they shouldn't be too far away. The three frowned and began to search. The moment Lin Xian was enveloped by the strange power, he activated the Red Lotus armor. A layer of bright red light covered the whole area. Red lotuses jumped and protected him. At the same time, Lin Xian quickly resisted and slashed out sword light, but found that it was useless. Kid, don't mess around. This is a spatial teleportation formation. The Crimson Dragon said. Be careful, they're obviously targeting you. Lin Xian's face was gloomy. The people targeting him must be from the Divine Bird Palace. He didn't expect that they would have a chance to attack him while he was with Murong Qingqing. It seemed that he had underestimated the Divine Bird Palace. The next moment, a light flashed and Lin Xian was pulled to a deserted area by the force. As soon as he appeared, a majestic force was used. It was as if thousands of mountains were moving, causing the void to tremble. Bang! Lin Xian was caught off guard and was sent flying. Fortunately, he activated the Red Lotus armor in advance. Otherwise, this blow would have torn his body apart. Even so, his aura was tumbling and his bones were cracking. He's not dead? A surprised voice was heard. Obviously, they were surprised that Lin Xian could withstand the blow. Lin Xian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and suddenly turned around. His gaze was like a sword that pierced through the void. It's really you two old dogs. Lin Xian saw the two venerables from the Divine Bird Palace, and his face was gloomy. Humph, kid. Today is the day you die. Let's see where you can run to this time. The two venerables had ferocious looks on their faces, as if they were demon kings. Behind them were 5 disciples of the Divine Bird Palace. They were all looking at Lin Xian with sneers on their faces. Lin Xian frowned. He looked around and found that this was a special array formation that sealed off this area. He simply couldn't get out, and he wouldn't be able to break the array formation in a short time. You sent out 2 venerables? You divine bird palace are really shameless. You're so shameless even when dealing with a junior. It seems like this lousy bird palace isn't much after all. The crimson dragon flew out with a look of disdain. Woogie woogie. The snow-white little monkey also nodded, its expression disdainful. It's useless to say anything. Today, you won't be able to escape death. The venerable from the divine bird palace sneered. What a pity. Are all the young generation of the divine bird palace dead? Lin Xian laughed. Don't be so arrogant. There are countless geniuses in the divine bird palace. It's just that none of them came this time. That's right. Isn't it just a venerable? My divine bird palace also has one. Ha 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 ha. Lin Xian laughed. You have one as well? I'm 18 years old this year. What was the strength of your geniuses when they were 18 years old? Put away your pride. In front of me, you're nothing. What's the use of your talent? Dead geniuses are nothing. The 2 venerables attacked mercilessly. Boom. The terrifying palm fell, and the sky boiled as if it was about to collapse. A terrifying palm of light grabbed at Lin Xian. Whoosh! Lin Xian slashed out with his sword. The sword light was resplendent like the mighty Milky Way. It was 1,000 meters long and slashed down in the air. The sword chi cut through the light palm, and an earth-shaking rumble sounded. At the same time, he used his footwork to dodge quickly. This was because a fist as large as a mountain was flying over, shattering the void. Whoosh! Lin Xian brushed past the fist. The terrifying fist force hit his body, making clanging sounds as if 10,000 horses were galloping. The 2 venerables working together was too terrifying. Lin Xian couldn't resist at all. Little dog, I'll kill you, and then I'll kill these 2 beasts. I'll also kill your whole family. Everyone related to you will die. The 2 venerables sneered, and their bodies were full of killing intent. Beasts? You 2 are the beasts. The crimson dragon shouted angrily. Damn it, Bin Huang is angry. Isn't it just a stupid formation? Let's see how Bin Huang destroys it. Lin Xian's expression was cold. No one could threaten his friends and family. Sword light flickered in his eyes, and a pair of wind and thunder wings appeared on his back. They were 100 meters long. Kill my family and friends? You can't be forgiven. Whoosh! He flapped his wings and disappeared. Boom, boom, boom. The 2 venerables attacked. They kept waving their palms, creating black holes in the void. Violent airflows raged in the air. However, Lin Xian was too fast. He passed by them all. He had an Earth-grade movement technique, and he had perfected the wind and thunder concept. Now that he had the wind and thunder wings, his speed had reached the limit. Even a first heaven venerable might not be able to catch up to him. If he used all his strength, Lin Xian was confident that he could catch up to a second heaven venerable. Like a gust of wind and lightning, he kept appearing in the void and quickly approached the people of the divine bird palace. You're courting death. A venerable was furious. A flame formed in his palm and spread into the sky. It was incomparably terrifying. The power was 10 times stronger than what Zhu Yu had used before. Lin Xian let out a long roar and attacked with his sword soul. The half-moon sword chi flew out like a blood moon. At the same time, the sword of slaughter condensed in his hand. A monstrous and terrifying murderous aura was vast and mighty. It was like the roar of a killing god, causing people to tremble. Puff! The sword chi surged and cut open the sea of fire. At the same time, Lin Xian flashed quickly. Oh no! Stop him! The venerable shouted. Because he saw Lin Xian heading towards the 5 disciples of the divine bird palace behind him. Little dog, how dare you! Another venerable roared. His voice was like a tide that rolled over. At the same time, a blue long whip appeared in his hand. Lightning flashed on it, and it carried a terrifying aura. It was a lightning whip. The long whip trembled and countless lightning flashed, making crackling sounds as it pierced through the void. The energy fluctuation was like a lightning dragon roaring out. It circled in the air and rushed towards Lin Xian. The whip tore the void apart as it swept towards Lin Xian at high speed. If hit, Even a venerable would be seriously injured. Lin Xian roared and raised his speed to the limit. At the same time, the armor on his body shone. A bright red lotus bloomed and spun in the air, blocking the lightning whip. In the next moment, Lin Xian appeared in front of the disciples of the Divine Bird Palace. The sword of slaughter in his hand emitted endless blood-red light, dyeing the entire sky red. "Little dog, if you dare to attack, I'll make you wish you were dead," the two venerables roared. The disciples of the Divine Bird Palace also roared crazily. "We're the geniuses of the Divine Bird Palace. If you kill us, the Divine Bird Palace won't let you go. When the time comes, we'll kill your entire family and your clansmen. We'll pull out your tendons and refine your soul." Puff. Lin Xian's expression was cold. He waved the sword of slaughter, forming a blood-red sword light. Suddenly, a head flew into the sky, and blood spurted into the void like a pillar. Chi-Chi. The surrounding disciples of the Divine Bird Palace were splashed with blood, and their faces were covered in blood. They looked at the fallen headless corpse and screamed crazily. At this moment, they were finally afraid. Lin Xian was not afraid of their threats at all. He attacked mercilessly like a killing god. Chapter 680. Lin Xian dodged the attacks of the two venerables. Using his ultimate movement technique, he arrived in front of the Divine Bird Palace disciples in an instant. Puff, puff, puff. With a swing of his sword, 3 heads flew into the air. Blood spurted into the sky like pillars. Horrified screams were heard. The rest of the Divine Bird Palace disciples screamed frantically and trembled. The two venerables also roared to the sky. Their bodies exuded a powerful and terrifying aura that shook the entire sky. Damn it! Damn it! A brat actually killed their disciple right under their noses. It was a slap to their faces. Moreover, those disciples were all geniuses and elites. The death of any one of them would be a loss to the Divine Bird Palace. Their hearts were bleeding. They roared and rushed toward Lin Xian. "Little dog, I'll cut off your limbs and make you kneel in front of the graves of these heroes forever. I'll torture you every day. I'll make you wish you were dead." Vicious voices were heard. Like spears of the underworld, they pierced through the void and surged in all directions. Who do you think you are? Do you think you can cut off my limbs?" Lin Xian sneered. His hands did not stop moving. He waved his long sword, forming a terrifying blood-red sword aura. In an instant, the remaining Divine Bird Palace disciples were cut in half. "You two old dogs who have lived for hundreds of years. Didn't you want to kill my parents? I'll let you have a taste of this first, so that you won't harm others in the future." Lin Xian sneered. "Old dogs who have lived for hundreds of years have no right to compare with me. If we were both 18 years old, I could kill both of you in one move." Damn it. The two venerables of the Divine Bird Palace went crazy. No one had ever dared to insult them. But now, Lin Xian's words were like demonic swords that pierced their hearts. Moreover, the dead disciples in front of them deeply provoked them. Those disciples were all killed. None of them survived. This made it impossible for them to go back and explain themselves. "Brat, I want you dead." A large flaming hand reached out. It was burning with divine flames and quickly grabbed at Lin Xian. The 5 fingers were like heavenly pillars of fire, sealing off all directions and sealing off the world. The other venerable one waved his lightning whip like a blue lightning dragon, roaring ferociously. Lin Xian spread out the wind and thunder wings on his back and dodged quickly. He didn't want to take the attack head-on. "Ruzalong, has the formation been broken?" Lin Xian asked via voice transmission. "What a joke. Ben Huang is the Supreme Dragon Emperor. Is there any array formation that I can't solve?" The Crimson Dragon said proudly. If it wasn't for the loss of the dragon essence, Ben Huang would have been able to break this formation with one claw. Then what are we waiting for? Hurry up and break it. Hee hee. The Crimson Dragon waved its claws. "You know that I haven't reached the Venerable Realm yet, so it's very troublesome to break this formation. However, I've thought of another way. Although I can't break it in a short period of time, I have complete control over this array formation. I can modify this array formation and make it work for us. The Crimson Dragon snorted coldly. These two old farts dared to call Bin Huang a beast. Bin Huang must kill them. What should we do? Tell me. The power of wind and thunder surged on Lin Xian's body. Like streams of light, he shuttled back and forth between the terrifying attacks. This is a double-layered formation. It can both seal and teleport. I can use this formation to teleport one of the venerables out. As for the remaining venerable one, I'll use the formation to cooperate with your attacks. Hearing this, Lin Xian was delighted. He had wanted to kill these two venerables for a long time, but they were too strong for him to succeed. Now, the Crimson Dragon had a way to separate them. This was definitely a great opportunity to kill them. Both of them were First Heaven venerables. The venerable one who used lightning was stronger and had already reached the peak of the First Heaven venerables. Therefore, Lin Xian decided to teleport the venerable thunder away and kill the other one. He passed his idea to the Crimson Dragon. Then, he placed the little white monkey on his shoulder and prepared to launch a sure-kill attack. Boy, it's no use running away. There's no way for you to survive. The two venerables howled crazily. At this moment, the void fluctuated. An invisible power of space suddenly appeared and covered the venerable thunder. This is the power of the teleportation array. The two venerables were shocked. They couldn't understand why their array formation would suddenly be activated. Moreover, it was used on them. The Crimson Dragon sneered. Then, it waved its dragon claws and quickly changed the array formation. Buzz. The air trembled. The power of space became stronger. In an instant, the venerable thunder was pulled into a black hole and disappeared. Only the venerable one who used fire was left in the field. Damn it! What's going on? The venerable fire frowned. The current situation was completely out of his control. However, before he could figure it out, a sword radiance rushed toward him. You're courting death. Do you think you have a chance of winning by separating the two of us? What a joke. I've been in the venerable realm for almost 100 years. My martial soul is extremely powerful. What do you have to fight with me? The venerable fire snorted in disdain. Then, the flames on his body jumped and a scorching power spread out. He wanted to gather a powerful attack. However, in the next moment, a white figure suddenly flew over. It was as fast as lightning. What's that? The venerable fire was shocked. The speed shocked him. Soon, he saw the white figure clearly. It was a palm-sized little white monkey. At this moment, it was looking at him with a disdainful sneer. The venerable fire was furious. A monkey dared to mock him? He snorted and raised his hand. He was about to crush the little thing in front of him. However, the little white monkey swayed and dodged the attack. Then, it stretched out its furry paw and slapped the venerable fire's face. Boom! When the paw landed, the venerable fire felt dizzy and fell into a coma. However, as a venerable fire, his soul was extremely powerful. Although he could not move due to the dizziness, he still realized that he had been hit. Seeing the dizzy venerable fire, Lin Xian smiled. Then, he held the slaughter sword with both hands, and the power of his sword soul surged. Heavenly meteor. A blazing sword radiance flashed. It was like a bright star that streaked across the void. The sword was so stunning that the entire world was overshadowed. Poof! A bloody hole appeared in the venerable fire's chest. His muscles and organs were all minced by the sword chi. In the next moment, he recovered from the dizziness and roared. The pain made him go crazy. When experts fought, they fought for the initiative. Usually, a mistake could determine life and death. However, as a venerable fire who had been in this realm for 100 years, he was very powerful. Although he was dizzy just now, he relied on his body's instinct and mobilized the power of his bloodline. At the last moment, he moved his body slightly to the side and avoided his heart. Otherwise, the sword that pierced his heart would have taken his life. Chapter 681. The Flame Reverend swallowed a spiritual medicine to suppress the wound on his chest. Then, he stared at Lin Xian with boundless hatred and fear in his eyes. It was beyond his expectations that Lin Xian could injure him in an instant. especially that strange little monkey. It was actually able to knock him out. It was really too inconceivable. He set up a flaming shield around his body, which spun quickly. At the same time, divine flames danced on his body, forming a flaming armor. It wrapped around his body tightly to prevent another sneak attack. On the other hand, Lin Xian sighed softly. That sword strike of his had been aimed at his opponent's heart. However, his opponent still managed to dodge it at the last moment. However, the effect of this attack was excellent. At least he had severely injured his opponent. Moreover, he had left a sword soul power in his opponent's body. That was the power of the great dragon sword soul. It could not be removed easily. Even if his opponent was a reverend who had been stuck for 100 years, he could only temporarily suppress the sword soul power. Thinking of this, Lin Xian quickly attacked. The sword chi was shocking. It was like a blood-red river. It roared and slashed at the flame reverend. Since he had already severely injured the other party, Lin Xian had no intention of giving him a chance to recover. The sword chi circled and roared in the air. It formed a blood-red dragon and rushed forward. The snow-white little marquis returned to Lin Xian's shoulder. It blinked its big eyes and waited for an opportunity. Terrifying energy surged. Lin Xian's every attack contained the power of the sword soul. It was extremely sharp. The great dragon sword soul was originally an offensive saint art. Now that it had been merged with Lin Xian, it was even more powerful. Every sword chi was as thick as a mountain, capable of destroying a city. The sword chi filled the sky and slashed at the flame reverend. The flame reverend roared angrily. He waved his fists and threw out 9 punches in a row. Each punch contained the terrifying power of a reverend. It was accompanied by a sea of fire. The flaming fists surged. Each punch was stronger than the previous one. In the end, the entire void was trembling and distorting. However, the more the flame reverend fought, the more shocked he became. Lin Xian's sword aura was simply too sharp. It contained an unparalleled offensive aura, and every single sword strike was capable of slicing apart his attacks. This made him extremely shocked. After all, he'd entered the Exalt realm over 100 years ago, and his strength was extremely formidable. On the other hand, Qian Shi had merely condensed his martial soul and hadn't even stepped into the Exalt realm. Although this kind of martial artist was powerful, he would not be able to defeat a real venerable one. However, Lin Xian was different. His battle prowess was too strong. He could even suppress a first heaven venerable realm martial artist. The current situation was just like that. The other party was suppressing him. That terrifying sword chi caused the flame reverend's heart to tremble. Moreover, there was also a terrifying sword chi in his body that was rampaging madly, trying to destroy his life force. It could be said that both internal and external troubles caused the flame venerable to complain continuously. His current plan was to stall for time and wait for the thunder venerable to return. Then, the two of them would join forces to kill Lin Xian once again. But Lin Xian didn't give him the chance. The slaughter sword slashed through the air, and a blood-red sword appeared in the sky. It gave off a blood-red aura of slaughter, and it was like the blade of a killing god had descended. Gale lightning sword, mountain river cleaving one sword. Lin Xian didn't hesitate and used an earth-grade martial art. The blood-red sword moved. It was covered with mysterious runes, and a monstrous aura of slaughter spread out, dyeing the sky and earth red. At the same time, the Nirvana sword appeared in Lin Xian's left hand, and he also waved it quickly. Behind the blood-red sword, a pitch-black sword condensed again. It gave off an aura of extermination that filled the entire sky. Gale lightning sword, double sword star destruction. The two swords hummed together, and a terrifying energy swept out in all directions. Then, it quickly descended. In an instant, the aura of slaughter and nirvana covered the flame reverend. The sky collapsed, and the ground shattered. Countless terrifying cracks spread out in all directions. In the sky, the wind howled, and lightning descended. The sky collapsed, and the ear-piercing sound was like a demonic sound that made one's heart tremble. It was a terrifying scene, as if the world was about to be destroyed. The flame reverend roared. He couldn't care about anything else. He activated the power of his bloodline and merged it with his martial soul. Behind him, a sea of fire spread out, and the shadow of a divine bird flew out from the sea of fire. It was born from the fire. The divine bird was hundreds of feet long, and it was bathed in flames. As it flapped its wings, countless flames surged into the sky and swept the 9 heavens. With a cry, the flaming divine bird rushed into the sky and collided with the 2 heavenly swords. Rumble. Suddenly, an extremely powerful force exploded, shattering the void. Terrifying cracks appeared, and a pitch-black black hole formed in the sky, and it continued to expand. The wind howled, and the space trembled. The power was enough to kill a martial artist in the venerable realm. The flaming divine bird cried and spat out pillars of fire. They were like fire god spears that pierced through the sky and attacked the 2 heavenly swords. At the same time, its huge body brought about endless flames that burned the sky. Even the 2 heavenly swords became dim. In the sky, the huge heavenly swords became blurry, as if they couldn't withstand the flames. However, the power of the sword soul didn't weaken at all. Instead, it became even stronger. An earth-shattering aura surged out quickly and slashed at the flaming divine bird, causing it to cry out in pain. A blood-red murderous aura spread out like the blade of a killing god. It quickly slashed at the flaming divine bird and cut off half of its wing. The Nirvana sword was even crazier. The pitch-black sword was like the move of the death god. It quickly absorbed the life force of the flaming divine bird, causing it to wail incessantly. The Flame Supremacy's face was pale. He looked at the scene in the sky, and his eyes were uncertain. Then, he gritted his teeth and waved his palm, causing the flaming divine bird in the sky to explode. An earth-shattering explosion sounded, and a terrifying power surged out. It was as if thousands of fireballs had split open in the sky. It was very shocking. The sky was pierced through, and a terrifying black vortex appeared. It was incomparably dark. The 2 heavenly swords were hit by the terrifying energy and instantly became dim. The Flame Supremacy's body trembled, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. He didn't hesitate to injure himself and successfully blocked Lin Xian's Earth-grade martial art. However, his current condition was very bad. He was already severely injured, and now that he was suffering from the backlash of his martial art, he was even weaker. The Flame Supremacy's eyes were filled with endless murderous aura and unwillingness. Then, he gritted his teeth and decisively decided to retreat temporarily. His condition wasn't good, and it wasn't easy for him to continue fighting. It was better to wait until he recovered from his injuries and met up with the Thunder Supremacy to kill Lin Xian. Then, he quickly turned around and wanted to leave. Lin Xian sneered. It wasn't easy for him to injure the Flame Supremacy, so how could he let him leave? He put his palms together and merged the Nirvana sword and the Sword of Slaughter, forming a red and black demonic sword. Then, the demonic sword danced, forming mysterious sword waves. Gale Lightning Sword. 3 swords frighten ghosts and gods. Chapter 682. The Fire Venerable was severely injured and did not dare to fight anymore. He was ready to escape. At this moment, the Crimson Dragon secretly controlled the array to prevent the Fire Venerable from escaping. Lin Xian quickly merged the Sword of Massacre and Sword of Nirvana to perform the 3rd move of the Tempest Lightning Sword. The 3rd move of the Tempest Lightning Sword was terrifying. In the sky, the clouds tumbled and formed a giant red and black sword once again. A shocking murderous aura and chi of Nirvana were emitted. It was extremely terrifying, as if it could destroy everything. The giant sword was extremely terrifying. As soon as it appeared, it caused the void to collapse. The surrounding space shattered like a mirror. Countless black cracks spread out. It was a shocking sight. The power was extremely terrifying. Even a venerable would die upon contact. Impossible! The Fire Venerable exclaimed when he felt the aura. Then, his face became incomparably ugly because if he was hit, there was no chance of survival. He roared and performed the power of his bloodline. Powerful aura rose around him and condensed into the shape of a divine bird. It brought him away quickly. With a flash of light, the fire venerable disappeared. However, in the next moment, the space trembled and a teleportation force quickly shrouded him. Swoosh! The fire venerable, who had flown far away, returned to his original spot. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Realizing this, the fire venerable's face turned green and he could not help but curse. He was going crazy and had the urge to curse. Then, he quickly condensed a pair of flaming wings that were 1,000 meters long. They looked like the wings of a demon god. As soon as the flaming wings appeared, he turned into a stream of flames and disappeared again. However, in the next moment, the teleportation force sent him back to his original spot. Impossible! This is impossible! The fire venerable roared at the sky with shock and despair in his eyes. He was about to cry. How could they play with him like this? This set of formations was originally meant for Feng Lin Xian. Who would have thought that it would become his nightmare? This was simply shooting himself in the foot. The Crimson Dragon snickered at the side. Of course, this was his masterpiece. Old fart, how dare you call Bin Huang a beast? I'll let you know how powerful Bin Huang is. The Crimson Dragon snorted. At this moment, the gale lightning sword above his head once again descended mercilessly. Blood rained down as the aura of death permeated the air. It was as if the god of slaughter and the god of death had descended, causing this space to become abnormally oppressive. The Flame Reverend couldn't escape, so he could only take it head-on. He condensed all of his spirit energy and bloodline power into a flaming armor to defend himself. At the next moment, the gale lightning sword slashed down, shattering the entire ground. Cracks as thick as mountains extended out in all directions. The entire ground looked as if it had been bitten by an abyssal beast. The terrifying sword chi was like a heavenly pillar that shot out in all directions. Rumbling sounds could be heard as the surrounding mountains were blasted apart. The ground sank, and the sky boiled. Countless amounts of energy were like ocean waves, crashing in all directions. Even the array formation that sealed off the area began to tremble rapidly, as if it would break apart at any moment. It couldn't be helped. This sword strike was too stunning. It was as if it could split open the 9 heavens and 10 earths and annihilate gods and devils. The Flame Reverend screamed crazily. The defense he formed was mercilessly cut open. The huge sword pierced into his body and instantly split him into 2. Until the moment of his death, he did not believe that a young man with only a martial spirit would be able to kill him. With endless unwillingness and despair, the Flame Reverend slowly fell down. With a flash, Lin Xian turned into a sword radiance and instantly appeared beside the Flame Reverend. He took the storage ring from his hand. Then, a ball of sword radiance burst out and cut the corpse into pieces. One down. There's still one left. Young man, are you confident? The Crimson Dragon asked from the side. Fight. Lin Xian didn't bother to explain. The other party came to kill him. Now that there was a chance, he would naturally kill the other party. Moreover, he and the Divine Bird Palace had long been enemies. He was naturally happy to be able to weaken the other party's strength. After swallowing a cup of spirit wine, Lin Xian began to recover his strength. A huge spirit chi vortex formed above his head, and streams of spirit chi flowed into his body. Soon, the depleted spirit chi was replenished. There's an aura. The other party is coming. The Crimson Dragon suddenly said, Get ready. Let him in and then attack, Lin Xian ordered. Then he touched the snow-white little monkey on his shoulder. This time, it's up to you. Woo ji, the snow-white little monkey patted its chest, and its big eyes narrowed into crescents. Attention, he's coming in, the Crimson Dragon whispered, and then began to operate the array silently. The void vibrated, and a figure covered with thunder and lightning rushed in quickly. The aura was very shocking, as if the god of thunder had descended. Damn thief! Get the hell out here! Before the person arrived, a terrifying sound wave swept in all directions like a wave, shaking the void and shattering it. Whoosh! The snow-white little monkey jumped up, turned into a white lightning, and instantly arrived in front of the figure. With a slap of its paw, it knocked the figure unconscious. The Thunder Reverend was very sad. He had just entered the array and didn't have time to see the situation around him before he was knocked unconscious. A very mysterious force made him dizzy, and he fell into a temporary coma. However, the next moment, an earth-shattering pain stimulated his soul and woke him up. Then, she was extremely furious and roared at the sky. What followed was a heart-wrenching scream. That was because he realized that his entire right arm had been cut off. He was terrified, and he immediately grabbed the right arm that had been cut off. Although the supremacy stage was extremely powerful, they had not reached the stage where they could regrow a severed arm. However, with the Thunder Reverend's means, the severed arm could be reattached. Therefore, his first reaction was to look for the severed arm. However, the next moment, the void vibrated, and the severed right arm disappeared in front of him. This is the power of space. The Thunder Reverend roared. He had been transported away by this power, and now his severed arm had been snatched away. With a furious roar, the Thunder Reverend emitted a supreme aura that made heaven and earth go crazy. His eyes were like lightning as he scanned the surroundings. Then, he stared at Lin Xian. Lin Xian had a cold smile on his face as he stood with a sword in his hand. Beside him was a 2-meter-long dark red snake, which was grabbing his right arm with a mocking expression. In addition, there was also a snow-white little monkey with a lightning whip in its hand that kept jumping. The Thunder Reverend was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. He could not tolerate it. Not only did Lin Xian take away his weapon, but he had also cut off his right arm. He could not wait to run over and tear Lin Xian into pieces. However, the next moment, he was stunned. That was because he did not see the Flame Reverend. He could only feel the remnant aura in the air, but the Flame Reverend had disappeared. Could it be? The Thunder Reverend suddenly had a bad premonition. Impossible. Soon, he shook his head in denial. Like him, the Flame Reverend had been in the supremacy stage for hundreds of years. How could a brat who had just condensed a martial soul kill an expert like him? There's no need to look for him. We've already killed that flaming old dog. The Crimson Dragon sneered. You'll join him soon. Chapter 683. Don't worry. You will reunite with him soon. The Crimson Dragon stared at the Thunder Venerable with a sneer. What? That's impossible? The Thunder Venerable exclaimed. He didn't believe that the Flame Venerable would be killed by Lin Xian. However, the situation before his eyes proved that everything was true. Especially when he saw the remains of the Flame Venerable, he felt as though he was struck by lightning. At that moment, Lin Xian made his move again. He took advantage of the Thunder Venerable's momentary distraction and turned into a sword light again, charging forward quickly. This sword was still the meteor from outer space. The sword light shone like a galaxy roaring in the void. The space was torn apart with an ear-piercing sound. In the blink of an eye, the horrifying sword aura had already arrived in front of the Thunder Venerable. The Thunder Venerable's body shook and his eyes regained clarity. Lightning surged all over his body as he moved horizontally. Poof! The lightning armor in front of his chest shattered and a horrifying crack extended, almost splitting him apart. The Thunder Venerable was severely injured and his body flew backward. Lin Xian succeeded in his attack and quickly followed up. The Thunder Venerable was shocked. He didn't expect Lin Xian's swordsmanship to be so sharp that he was severely injured in an instant. The fear in his eyes, the injuries on his body, and the news of the Flame Venerable being killed made his heart tremble. Unknowingly, he developed a fear of Lin Xian. Such emotions were terrifying, especially when he was fighting against an expert. It might affect his combat power and kill him. The Thunder Venerable was naturally aware of this, but he couldn't suppress the fear in his heart. It couldn't be helped. Lin Xian had given him too much shock. With a roar, the Thunder Venerable didn't dare to fight anymore and chose to escape. To the Thunder Venerable, this was a wise choice. First of all, his right arm was broken and he was severely injured, causing his combat power to decrease greatly. Moreover, the fear in his heart made him almost afraid to face Lin Xian. Therefore, choosing to escape was the best decision for him. However, Lin Xian smiled in disdain. As a martial artist, The most important thing wasn't martial techniques, but a strong heart. If you don't even have the heart to win, it doesn't matter how much you have. Looking at the fleeing figure, Lin Xian's eyes lit up. The great dragon sword soul in his body surged and let out an impassioned roar. Although the venerables of the Divine Bird Palace were powerful, they were usually pampered and used to being arrogant and despotic. Once they engaged in a real-life and death battle, their shortcomings would be revealed. Lin Xian, on the other hand, was different from them. He came from the tiny and remote Tianan region and had fought his way through battles. Everything was achieved by fighting with his own two hands. Therefore, he had a strong and confident heart and an unyielding fighting spirit. This was the most important thing to a martial artist. Taking a deep breath, Lin Xian stabbed out with his sword. Sword chi flew out, condensing into a blood-red star that quickly streaked across the sky. Starburst! The void cracked open, emitting an uneasy sound. In an instant, the blood star arrived behind the Thunder Venerable. Boom! A terrifying explosion occurred, and a terrifying energy enveloped him. No! The Thunder Venerable let out a desperate cry, and then was drowned in the torrent of energy. After a long time, the terrifying energy dissipated, and a blackened corpse fell to the ground. Lin Xian turned around and called the Crimson Dragon and the Snow-White Monkey to quickly break the array and leave this place. Lin Xian didn't look for Morong Qingqing anymore. Instead, he chose a direction, turned into a sword light, and instantly disappeared into the sky. Half a day later, 3 figures landed. Looking at the destroyed battlefield, they sucked in a breath of cold air. These 3 people were Morong Qingqing's team. They looked at the terrifying sword souls on the ground and the broken corpses on the ground, their eyes full of shock. This is the Venerable of the Divine Bird Palace. He can't be any more dead. It seems that Lin Xian has safely left. The middle-aged scholar looked around and said in a deep voice, "What? That bastard killed the Venerable of the Divine Bird Palace." Ling covered her mouth with a shocked expression. "I'm afraid it's not just the Thunder Venerable. The Flame Venerable also couldn't escape death." The middle-aged scholar pointed at the broken pieces in the distance and said again, How is this possible? Is that bastard still human?" Ling was shocked. Morong Qingqing's eyes flickered. She was indeed shocked. In her opinion, Lin Xian was taken away by 2 venerables and was definitely doomed. She didn't expect that the outcome would be so shocking. She took a deep breath and calmed herself down, but she was even more determined. Such a peerless genius, she must take him under her wing. It was too shocking. Lin Xian just condensed his sword soul and killed 2 venerables. This combat power was absolutely heaven-defying. Moreover, Lin Xian was only 18 years old. According to the rules of Tianwu continent, he had just come of age. This kind of martial artist had amazing potential. If there were no accidents in the future, he would definitely be the strongest combat power. Let's go to the Palace of Gods of War. Morong Qingqing turned and left with the 2 of them. Lin Xian was not in a hurry. Instead, he found a safe place to recuperate. Although the battle just now was fast, it was very dangerous. He used some of his trump cards and consumed a lot of his energy. Therefore, after he left the battlefield, he found a safe place to quickly recover his energy. After a long time, Lin Xian opened his eyes and his body returned to its peak state. Then, he took out the 2 storage rings and smiled. These 2 storage rings naturally belonged to the 2 venerables of Divine Bird Palace. During the battle, he specially protected them and did not break them. It was the first time he got the venerable storage rings, so he was a little excited. He extended his soul power and rushed towards the 2 storage rings. However, he soon felt a force blocking him. Lin Xian knew that this was the soul seal on the storage rings, used to prevent others from probing. However, Lin Xian snorted coldly. His soul accompanied the great dragon sword soul and quickly pierced downwards. Ka! With a shattering sound, the soul seal on the 2 storage rings was instantly broken. Then, Lin Xian's soul power probed into the rings. Suddenly, he sucked in a breath of cold air. The space in the storage rings was very large. It was half the size of a city, 10 times larger than his storage belt. Lin Xian estimated that this storage ring should be a high-grade spirit rank artifact. His storage belt was only an ordinary spiritual lower-grade treasure. The two were not at the same level at all. Other than the vast storage space, the items inside also made Lin Xian gasp in surprise. Mid-grade spirit stones were piled up like mountains. All kinds of materials, spiritual herbs, martial arts, and treasures could be seen everywhere. Lin Xian had also obtained a lot of storage rings, but those added together were not even 1/10,000th of what was here. In fact, this was normal. The two venerables had lived for hundreds of years. All of their most precious treasures were in the storage rings. Moreover, the two were elders of Divine Bird Palace. Their status was respected, so the resources in their hands were absolutely shocking. Haha, I'm rich. Lin Xian was ecstatic. This was definitely an amazing wealth. Chapter 684. The most precious things he had were the 1,000-year-old spiritual herbs and some strange stones. The rest were not worth mentioning. Moreover, after he condensed his martial soul, ordinary resources became very useless to him. Now it was different. These were two venerable realm storage rings. Most of the things inside were for venerable realm cultivators. Lin Xian could use them all. Lin Xian was ecstatic to obtain two venerable realm storage rings. He had just condensed his martial soul and needed some resources. There were tens of millions of middle-grade spiritual stones piled up like a mountain, and there was also a box of upper-grade spiritual stones. The value of an upper-grade spiritual stone was dozens of times that of a middle-grade spiritual stone. Although there were some exchange rates in the outside world, most people would not exchange at all. Lin Xian had only heard of it before, but now it was the first time he saw it. The box of upper-grade spiritual stones was crystal clear and full of spiritual energy, far surpassing the middle-grade spiritual stones next to it. With a satisfied smile, he looked at the spiritual herbs and other materials. Among them, there were 7,000-year-old spiritual herbs in the Flame Venerable's storage ring, and only 9 in the Thunder Venerables. This surprised Lin Xian. Although he also had 1,000-year-old spiritual herbs, they were obtained from the lost place. In the outside world, he could not obtain 1,000-year-old spiritual herbs at all. Take the Sand region as an example. A 1,000-year-old spiritual herb was enough to make a venerable go crazy. One could imagine the value of a 1,000-year-old spiritual herb. Now, the venerable of the Divine Bird Palace had dozens of 1,000-year-old spiritual herbs, completely defeating the venerable of the Sand region. As expected of a top force, rich as expected, Lin Xian clicked his tongue in admiration. Then, he looked at the bottles and jars. Naturally, they were filled with elixirs. He opened the small bottles one by one and found that the worst ones were 5th-grade elixirs, and there were some 6th-grade elixirs. Lin Xian remembered that in the Tianshan Kingdom, a 5th-grade elixir had caused a lot of commotion. Now, there were countless 5th-grade elixirs in the storage rings, and even the more precious 6th-grade elixirs. The higher the grade of an elixir, the more precious it was. For example, a 6th-grade elixir was definitely worth more than dozens of 5th-grade elixirs. Lin Xian discovered that in the 2 storage rings, there were only a total of 3 bottles of grade 6 medicinal pills. Lin Xian carefully put away the grade 6 medicinal pills and scanned the surroundings once more. Next, he saw the materials. There were all kinds of beast bones, scales, and tentacles. They were obviously precious materials. Lin Xian examined it carefully. Suddenly, he raised his eyebrows and revealed a look of shock. This was because he found a few extremely special materials among the materials. They were all materials for the Red Lotus battle armor. There were 3 types in total. Lin Xian found them and stored them separately. In addition, he also had the Divine Dream Bone in his hands. He obtained a total of 4 materials. Although it wasn't much, Lin Xian was still overjoyed. This was because he had carefully studied the blueprint of the Red Lotus armor. This set of armor was very strange. Moreover, it could be made separately. In other words, if there were not enough materials, he could make a small part of it first. He only needed 2 more materials to make the gauntlet. The Red Lotus battle armor's function was not only defense. Every part of the armor was engraved with ancient inscriptions that could activate a combination of consummate skills. For example, a pair of gauntlets could activate the Red Lotus 100 Blaze Fist. The effect was comparable to an Earth-rank martial art. Suppressing the joy in his heart, Lin Xian continued to explore the other materials. The rest were some martial arts. Lin Xian now mastered 2 Earth-rank martial arts. One was the Gale Lightning Sword technique, and the other was the Illusory Demon Steps. Both were Earth-rank low-grade martial arts. In addition, Lin Xian also comprehended 2 sword skills. Between the Sword of Slaughter and Nirvana, their power was comparable to an Earth-rank martial art. Then there was the Red Lotus battle armor. Currently, its defense was comparable to an Earth-rank martial art and could block a Supremacy's attack. As for the Azure Cloud9 swords, Lin Xian had obtained them a long time ago. Now, they were somewhat basic. The later moves were still okay. As for the first few moves, they were useless to Lin Xian now. Although Ji also left some martial arts for Lin Xian, the best of them were only half Earth-rank martial arts. Therefore, Lin Xian still had to think of a way to obtain the martial arts needed by a Supremacy in the future. Quickly searching through the martial arts, Lin Xian found that most of the martial arts collected by the 2 Supremacies were half Earth-rank martial arts. Moreover, they required the cooperation of the Divine Bird Palace's bloodline. This was useless to him. As for the Earth-rank martial arts, Lin Xian did not see them at all. Presumably, the Divine Bird Palace's control of Earth-rank martial arts was very strict. After all, these martial arts were extremely rare and precious in the Sky Martial Continent. However, Lin Xian still found some other things. Presumably, they were the 2 old men's personal belongings. Half a bottle of blood with an extremely strong, baleful aura. He did not know what it was, but Lin Xian felt that it should be some kind of demonic beast's bloodline. Next to the blood bottle, there was half a map. On it were mountains and rivers and a city. Next to it were 3 words, Heavenly Netherbird. As for the other storage ring, Lin Xian found a stone inscription. There was a mark on it that emitted a faint, mysterious aura. These 2 things were placed very deep. Fortunately, Lin Xian's soul force was strong. Otherwise, he might not have found them. Lin Xian guessed that these 2 things were very mysterious. The 2 Supremacies should not have understood them. Of course, he did not know what these 2 things were used for. However, he knew the Crimson Dragon, this old fox. Lin Xian passed the information of the 2 mysterious items to the Crimson Dragon. Soon, the Crimson Dragon jumped up. Heavenly Nether Bird. Its eyes lit up like a hungry wolf. Brat, where did you see it? Quickly show it to me. Lin Xian saw the Crimson Dragon's abnormal reaction and was surprised. He took out the half map, but did not mention the bottle of blood. This Ruzalong did not act according to common sense. Lin Xian was afraid that it would drink it. The Crimson Dragon excitedly took the map and studied it carefully. Hey, you still haven't told me what the Heavenly Netherbird is, Lin Xian asked. It's a type of demon beast. It's very strong. The Crimson Dragon replied. How strong? Rank 10? Stupid. The Crimson Dragon stopped studying and said with disdain, after the rank 9 demon beast is the Demon General. It corresponds to the 9 layers of the Supremacies. The Demon General is divided into 9 stars. However, there are too many rare beasts in this world. Someone divided them into 2 lists, the Heaven and Earth lists. The Heavenly Netherbird is a beast on the Heaven lists. A beast on the Heaven lists? Then it's stronger than you? Lin Xian asked. Bullshit. Benhuang is also a beast on the Heaven lists. The Crimson Dragon said with disdain. We mystical dragons are the overlords of this world. Wuji, the snow-white monkey, was dissatisfied after hearing this. What's your mystical dragon clan's ranking? Lin Xian asked. Top 10? Top 10? Not number 1? Lin Xian was surprised. What do you know? The top 10 beasts on the Heaven lists are all powerful beasts left behind from the ancient times. It's hard to tell who's stronger and who's weaker, so they're called the 10 ancient emperors. Heaven lists, Earth lists, 10 ancient emperors. Lin Xian exclaimed. He found a whole new world in front of him. Then what's the Heavenly Netherbird's ranking? Chapter 685. 198. The Crimson Dragon replied. So low, ignorant. Any monster on the heaven leaderboard is a heaven-defying existence. Killing a king is child's play. If this heavenly netherbird was still alive, this continent would have been destroyed long ago. The strength of a heaven leaderboard monster exceeded Lin Xian's expectations. It seemed that there were still many things in this world that he did not know. Then why are you so excited? Lin Xian was puzzled. Hee, this heavenly netherbird has been turned into a map, which means that it died a long time ago. If we can find its corpse, the Crimson Dragon's eyes lit up. That thing is a great supplement for me. Then, he added, don't worry, this heavenly netherbird will also be helpful to you. Just its bones and feathers alone are amazing refining materials. Isn't your Crimson Lotus battle armor lacking materials? You can find the heavenly netherbird's body to replace it. Moreover, if you can obtain its blood, you can even refine the heavenly nether flame. Heavenly nether flame? Lin Xian was shocked. From the name, it should be a type of flame, but he did not know if it was as powerful as the Black Dragon's flames. Is this the blood you're talking about? Lin Xian took out the strange blood bottle. F***CK. Brat, where did you get it? The Crimson Dragon jumped up and waved its claws, wanting to snatch it. Fortunately, Lin Xian's hands were quick, and he immediately took back the bottle. F***CK. Brat, you actually hid such a good thing. Hurry up and hand it over. F***CK. I knew you would steal it. Lin Xian rolled his eyes. The Crimson Dragon waved its claws angrily. Xiao Xuanzi, don't worry, I don't want the blood. That kind of thing is useless to me. Cut it out. Do you think I'm an idiot? Lin Xian coldly snorted, his face full of disbelief. F***CK. Bin Huang is so pissed off. The Crimson Dragon stomped his feet in anger. Bin Huang is a member of the Divine Dragon clan. The blood of the great Divine Dragon flows in his veins. Why would I want the blood of the heavenly netherbird? Really? Lin Xian was skeptical. Although the Crimson Dragon was unreliable, what he said made sense. Then why were you so impatient just now? Nonsense. This blood might be related to the heavenly netherbird. Of course I'm nervous. The Crimson Dragon explained, Brat, let's make a deal. When we find the heavenly netherbird, the demon crystal origin is mine. None of you can take it. Demon crystal origin? Lin Xian rolled his eyes. So that was what this guy was thinking. Needless to say, the source of the demon crystal should be something similar to the dragon essence. The Crimson Dragon had lost its dragon essence, which was why it was so anxious. All right, I have no problem with that, Lin Xian said. The snow-white monkey also shook its head in disdain. Although it was also a demonic beast, it was not interested in demonic cores or demon crystals. Instead, it loved spirit fruits the most. Brat, let's go, the Crimson Dragon said impatiently. Wait, there's something else. Can you help me take a look? Lin Xian took out the stone carving pattern. As soon as the stone was taken out, it brought with it an ancient aura, as if it was something very ancient. This thing was indeed very ancient. The pattern was very blurry, and the whole stone tablet was full of cracks, as if it would break at any time. The Crimson Dragon was slightly surprised, and then carefully observed it. If I'm not wrong, this should be the vermilion bird seal. I didn't expect those two old farts to have so many good things. Vermilion bird seal? Is it powerful? Lin Xian asked. Powerful. Of course it's powerful. It's definitely not lower than an earth-ranked martial art, the Crimson Dragon said, but this is only an incomplete seal, and there's only one move. Seeing Lin Xian's disappointed expression, the Crimson Dragon snorted, Brat, be content. This is an ancient martial art. Even if it's only one move, it's still far superior to the current martial arts. Then how do I learn it? This pattern is too blurry. I can't see it clearly. The vermilion bird is also a heaven-ranked demonic beast. I think I can use its blood to activate this pattern. Heaven-ranked demonic beast blood? Lin Xian smiled. He just happened to have one in his hand. Finished speaking, he took out the heaven serene bird's blood and was about to open it. Brat, what are you doing? The Crimson Dragon screamed. Learning martial arts, of course, Lin Xian said. Damn, this blood is very important. Who knows, we might need it in the heaven serene bird's nest. Is that so? Lin Xian rubbed his chin. Then what should I do? Then, his eyes lit up as he stared at the crimson dragon. Damn, what's with that look? The crimson dragon felt goosebumps from being stared at and took 2 steps back. I forgot, you're also on the heaven ranked. I think your blood should be more useful. Don't even think about it. No way. Brat, I already knew that you're not a good person. You actually dare to have ideas about Bin Huang. The crimson dragon shouted angrily. Then forget it. I'll use the heaven serene bird. I'm not in a hurry to get the demonic beast origin anyway, Lin Xian said slowly and opened the blood bottle. Damn, you win. Isn't it just 1 drop of blood? Bin Huang will take it. The crimson dragon's face was filled with pain. 2 drops. Lin Xian stretched out 2 fingers and waved them in the air. Damn, brat. Don't let Bin Huang catch you. The crimson dragon gritted its teeth and spat out 2 drops of dragon blood unwillingly. The 2 drops of dragon blood were the size of walnuts. They were light gold and floated in the air, looking very magical. Lin Xian took out a small white jade bottle and poured the 2 drops of dragon blood into it. Then, he dripped 1 drop on the stone pattern and put away the other. Buzz! The golden blood dripped onto the stone pattern and immediately emitted a golden light. Then, the blurry pattern became clearer and gradually formed the shape of a vermilion bird. In the end, the pattern emitted a blazing light and the vermilion bird on the pattern seemed to come alive. It flapped its wings and rushed into the sky. Suddenly, divine flames danced and a huge figure hovered in the air. It was as if a real vermilion bird was reborn. With a soft cry, it swooped down like a ball of flames and launched a terrifying attack. The void shattered and the ground sank. This attack seemed to have shattered the 9 heavens and 10 earths, causing the surrounding 1,000 miles to sink. Then, the vermilion bird's shadow disappeared. The stone tablet also shattered and turned into a pile of rubble. Lin Xian's eyes flashed. He was still recalling the attack just now. Just like that, he stood there like a statue. Only when night fell did he wake up. A touch of joy appeared. Lin Xian formed a seal with his right hand and channeled his spiritual power towards the sky. A dazzling light bloomed in his palm like a sun. It was very dazzling. The shadow of a vermilion bird soared into the sky, bringing with it a violent force as it flew rapidly into the sky. Boom! The void trembled and the entire sky was illuminated by flames. Fierce winds blew and waves of heat surged. The night turned into day. Vermilion bird seal. Success? Lin Xian was delighted. This attack was definitely not inferior to an Earth-rank martial art. He had just mastered it, but it already had such power. It meant that this move had great potential. As long as he focused on comprehending it, it would become stronger and stronger in the future. Putting away the vermilion bird seal, Lin Xian took out the other drop of dragon blood. Chapter 686. A drop of dragon blood, emitting a faint golden light, like golden glass. On it, there was a trace of dragon aura that made one's heart palpitate. Lin Xian waved his hand and summoned the drop of dragon blood. He then raised his head and swallowed it. At the side, the crimson dragon saw this scene and couldn't help but curse. This damn brat actually swallowed its dragon blood. No wonder you want 2 drops. I knew you were up to no good. Lin Xian naturally didn't care about Rouxalong. He was concentrating on refining the drop of dragon blood. Although this drop of dragon blood was small, it contained the purest energy. One must know that this was the dragon blood of the Eastern Divine Dragon Tribe, a rare treasure. He quickly activated the great dragon sword soul in his body. With a dragon roar, the sword soul transformed into a real dragon and swam around Lin Xian's body. Finally, it merged with the drop of dragon blood. Boom! The combination of the two caused a tremor. The great dragon sword soul roared as if it was nourished by energy and emitted light. Feeling the changes in the great dragon sword soul, Lin Xian smiled. He was right. The dragon blood could nourish the great dragon sword soul and make it stronger. After a long time, the great dragon sword soul finally calmed down. Lin Xian also opened his eyes. F***CK. Brat, what's with that look? The crimson dragon was scared. I'm warning you, don't try to take advantage of me. You want dragon blood? Dream on. Sigh, forget it. Lin Xian shrugged. He knew that dragon blood was important to the crimson dragon. Taking its dragon blood was equivalent to taking his life. Lin Xian wouldn't do that. It seemed that he had to think of another way. Let's go to the blood realm. Lin Xian stood up and left with the crimson dragon and the little white monkey. The blood realm was the place marked on the half-map. It was also the place Lin Xian had to pass through to reach the palace of Ares. Therefore, he didn't hesitate and quickly set off. A month later, Lin Xian finally left the sand region. Looking at the lush trees in front of him, he couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. The past few days had been too torturous. All along the way, there was a boundless desert. Everywhere was the same. It was like a maze. If it wasn't for the map and Lin Xian's powerful soul force, he might have really gotten lost. Lin Xian glanced at the map and continued on his way. Along the way, he went to many cities and saw the scenery of mountains and rivers. At the same time, he gained some understanding of the Blood Realm. The Blood Realm was a very special place. It couldn't be helped because it was too chaotic. There were no restrictions here, no mercy. All they believed in was strength. In this place, the strong were gods, can decide everything. It could be said that the Blood Realm was the embodiment of the law of the jungle and the law of the jungle. According to the information that Lin Xian had obtained, there had once been a country in the Blood Realm, and they had even tried to use their power to suppress everything. However, he still failed in the end. The powerful country had been destroyed, and the Blood Realm had once again fallen into chaos. Furthermore, countless martial artists and bloodthirsty powerhouses had fled here, turning the Blood Realm into a land of darkness. At this point, the Blood Realm had been divided up by a few large forces. However, among these forces, there was one that was very special, and that was Senmu College. The Immortal Martial Academy was extremely famous in the Tianwu continent, because those who graduated from the Immortal Martial Academy all became famous experts. It could be said that it was the cradle of powerhouses. However, such a powerful college had been established in the Blood Realm. This had indeed puzzled many people. However, for thousands of years, Senmu College had never left, even when the Blood Realm was at its most chaotic. Now, Senmu College had become a holy land of light in the Blood Realm because it was the only place that followed the rules. In the past, some powerhouses of the Blood Realm had refused to accept this and had wanted to attack Senmu College. However, all of them had died without exception. Even 2 8th-level heavenly venerables had been mercilessly killed. Since then, no one had dared to have any ideas about Senmu College. Furthermore, there had been rumors that Senmu College might have a monarch. Of course, this rumor had never been confirmed because there were too few monarchs. There were only a few in the Tianwu continent. However, this had cast a veil of mystery over Senmu College, causing countless young geniuses to flock to it. After hearing this news, Lin Xian rubbed his temples. No matter how he looked at it, the Blood Realm was an extremely dangerous place. He had no choice but to be careful. Furthermore, he had received even worse news. The Palace of Ares had been sealed off. The Palace of Ares was a 6-star force and one of the overlords of the Tianwu continent. It was located in the Tianxia domain. However, it wasn't on the Tianxia domain's land. Instead, it was located in an independent space. This small space was called the Mystic World. Originally, the Mystic World was open to the public. However, for some reason, the Mystic World of the Palace of Ares had been sealed off recently. From the looks of it, it wouldn't be opened anytime soon. Originally, Lin Xian had wanted to go to the Palace of Ares first after learning of the dangers of the Blood Realm. However, it seemed that he had no choice but to go to the Blood Realm. Kid, don't worry. Although the Blood Realm is chaotic, it's the most well-informed place. Perhaps you'll be able to obtain information about the Palace of Ares there. The Crimson Dragon said. Furthermore, the Blood Realm is rich in resources. It's the most suitable place for cultivation. Lin Xian nodded. It seemed that this was the only way. As he got closer and closer to the blood realm, the surroundings gradually became chaotic. More and more people were killed. Enemies fought. All sorts of bloody scenes played out. There were even a few ignorant people who had designs on Lin Xian. In the end, they were killed with a single slash. Immediately, the surrounding people looked at Lin Xian with reverence. No one dared to provoke him. After another half a month, Lin Xian finally entered the Blood Realm and arrived at the Blood Realm's plains. Although the Blood Realm was chaotic, it was rich in resources. Spiritual grasses, spiritual medicines, spiritual ores, spiritual stones, and all sorts of natural treasures were abundant. Furthermore, the cultivation techniques, martial skills, artifacts, and secret manuals here were even more popular. Many of them came from large factions. Normally, such things would be hunted down by large factions. However, it was very popular in the Blood Realm. There were even Earth-tier martial skills auctioned here. Furthermore, it was said that broken Earth-tier artifacts had appeared before. Therefore, although the Blood Realm was in chaos, it still attracted countless experts to flock over. As the map where the heavenly Netherbird was buried was incomplete, Lin Xian and the others could not determine it immediately. They could only search slowly. The Blood Realm was too big. It was even bigger than the Tianan region. It would not be easy to search here with only half a map. However, Lin Xian had his own plans. He could not enter the Palace of Ares now, and the Blood Realm was too dangerous. Therefore, he planned to enter Sinmu College. This way, not only could he inquire about the Palace of Ares in the Blood Realm, he could also find the heavenly Netherbird's whereabouts. He could also study and cultivate at Sinmu College. It was killing two birds with one stone. The Crimson Dragon also agreed. It did not want to be targeted. It would be unlucky if it was captured and refined into medicine. Therefore, Lin Xian temporarily changed his target and set off for Sinmu College. Chapter 687. The wide plains were all dark red in color, giving off an oppressive feeling. If one were to sense it carefully, they would even be able to detect traces of blood aura from the dark red soil. However, no one knew if the dark red soil was originally like this, or if it was dyed in blood. In the boundless blood plains, a figure flitted past as fast as lightning. This figure was as fast as a ghost, appearing hundreds of meters away every time. Moreover, what was even stranger was that the figure was too terrifying. It did not even make a sound. One could only see a slight breeze, and the figure instantly disappeared. However, from the back view that was left behind when it stopped, one could vaguely make out that the figure was very young. This figure was naturally Lin Xian. When he first came to the blood plains, he wanted to fly in the air. However, he soon saw a rookie like him, who was shot down from the sky not long after flying in the air. The attack's aura was extremely terrifying, and it even carried a trace of martial soul power. Seeing this, Lin Xian gave up on flying and chose to walk on the ground. He had no choice. Flying in the air was too eye-catching, especially with the glow on his body. He was like a moving target, and it was difficult not to be discovered. Out of safety precaution, Lin Xian chose to walk on the ground. With an Earth-class movement technique, Lin Xian's speed was very fast. Finally, after 2 hours, he saw the outline of a city in front of him. Looking at the city, Lin Xian let out a smile and increased his speed. Finally, he arrived in front of the city and stopped. The city was not big. It was just an ordinary town, and the city walls were mottled and very old. Lin Xian took a few quick glances before he strode forward. There were 5 or 6 veterans at the city gate. At this moment, they were playing a game similar to dice. When they saw Lin Xian's figure, they stopped what they were doing and picked up the spears on the ground. They crossed their spears and blocked the city gate. Moreover, their originally lazy faces had become fierce and ferocious. Waves of terrifying killing intent were emitted from their bodies. "Kid, you're not following the rules. Do you want to die?" One of the men shouted coldly. There was a scar on the left side of the man's face. It was about the length of a finger and looked like a centipede crawling on his face. At this moment, it looked extremely ferocious. Lin Xian stopped in his tracks and frowned as he looked ahead. The 6 burly men in front of him were all wearing green light armor, and there was a ferocious wolf head on their chests. Rules? What rules? Lin Xian asked in a deep voice. You don't even know the rules? Don't tell me he's a newbie? The burly men were stunned for a moment before they burst into laughter. They couldn't sense Lin Xian's cultivation, so they thought that Lin Xian was just a weak rookie. Brat, you dare to come to the blood realm at such a young age? Are you not afraid of death? Look at your small body. If I let you in, you'll probably die on the streets the next day. The burly men laughed wildly, making fun of Lin Xian. Lin Xian said indifferently, I came with my master's sect, but we arrived a little early. All right, we don't care who you came with. This city is under the jurisdiction of the Green Wolf Gang. If you want to enter, you have to pay 10,000 spiritual stones. 10,000? Lin Xian frowned. One had to know that 10,000 spiritual stones was not a small number. In Quicksand City, it only cost 1,000 spiritual stones to watch a top-notch martial arts competition. But now, it cost 10,000 spiritual stones just to enter the city. As expected of the Blood Realm, it was truly unscrupulous. Shaking his head, Lin Xian didn't want to look for trouble. With a swipe of his finger, he took out 10,000 spiritual stones from his storage ring. The burly men were stunned. They didn't expect Lin Xian, who looked weak and ordinary, to take out 10,000 spiritual stones so easily. Moreover, it looked like these spiritual stones were just a small number to him. Especially when they saw the storage ring in Lin Xian's hand, their eyes lit up with greed. It was a very exquisite storage ring with ancient patterns carved on it. From time to time, it would flash with light. They had only seen storage rings of this grade in the hands of their gang leader. And now, an unknown brat actually had such a precious storage ring? They looked at each other and sneered. Fat sheep, this was definitely a fat sheep. The scarred man quickly put away the 10,000 spiritual stones and said coldly, Kid, I think you didn't understand. When I said 10,000 spiritual stones, I meant 10,000 each. So, you have to pay 60,000 spiritual stones. Hurry up and pay. Otherwise, if you piss off the Green Wolf Gang, we'll kill you in minutes. The 6 burly men looked at Lin Xian and sneered. Lin Xian frowned. 60,000 spiritual stones was nothing to him, but they were obviously trying to extort him. He wasn't a fool who would be taken advantage of. Damn it, didn't you understand what I said? Another burly man said coldly, If you know what's good for you, hand over your storage ring and I'll let you in. Otherwise, be careful of your dog life. After saying that, he pulled out the long saber at his waist. The saber flashed with a cold light. Lin Xian laughed. The Blood Realm was indeed worthy of its reputation. Even the 6 guards dared to be so arrogant. They even wanted to kill him and steal his treasures. If it was any other place, it would be impossible. But in the Blood Realm, it seemed reasonable. Seeing Lin Xian's disdainful smile, the 6 burly men were enraged. Little thing, I think you have a death wish. Men, cut off his limbs and feed them to the dogs, the scarred man said coldly. Then, one of the burly men walked out with a sinister smile and slashed at Lin Xian with his long saber. Crack! A crisp sound was heard. Lin Xian caught the long saber with both hands. Then, under the horrified gazes of the 6 men, he turned his fingers. Suddenly, the long saber turned into white powder and scattered on the ground. With a gentle breeze, it disappeared. What? The 6 burly men's eyes almost popped out, especially the one who was still holding the saber hilt. He was so scared that he almost peed his pants. He had spent a lot of money to buy that long saber. It was a low-grade spiritual grade treasure. In the past, it was very fierce when cutting people. But now, it had been turned into powder with 2 fingers. An expert, an absolute expert. The 6 of them were not fools. They trembled and immediately said respectfully, Senior, please spare our lives. Please spare our lives. We have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Please be magnanimous and let us go. The 6 burly men trembled and kept slapping their faces. They almost knelt down. Senior, Here are your 10,000 mid-grade spirit stones, the scarred man said with a trembling voice. Oomph. Only this time. There won't be a next time. Lin Xian put away the spirit stones, snorted, and walked into the city. Yes, yes, yes. The 6 guards nodded like chickens pecking at rice. After confirming that Lin Xian had really left, they heaved a sigh of relief. Damn, that was so scary. We were almost finished. It was too dangerous. It was even more terrifying than the battlefield. Look at him. Is he a genius disciple of a big faction? The few of them whispered with lingering fear. Damn it, keep your eyes open in the future. We were lucky this time. If we make a mistake again, I'm afraid we're dead. The scarred man shouted in a deep voice. Chapter 688. Broken Mountain City. Inside the city. Lin Xian walked in the city, enjoying the unique Bloodfield city. In such a short period of time, he had already seen 3 fights, and one of them had even resulted in a life. However, the body was quickly carried away by the Green Wolf gang in light armor, leaving behind a pool of blood. The winner would take the storage ring and other resources, while the loser would lose their lives and be fed to the dogs. Lin Xian planned to get a map first and find the way to Sinma College as soon as possible. However, in the process of buying the map, he was quickly exposed as a rookie. Hey, there's another newcomer. He looks so weak. He dares to come out alone with such a cultivation level? If this guy dares to stay, I guarantee he won't live past tonight. I haven't eaten fresh meat in a long time. That kid looks pretty good. All sorts of discussions rang out. The voices were very loud and had no intention of hiding it. Lin Xian put away the map with a speechless expression. He was wondering if he should show off a little bit of his strength to prevent these flies from stopping. Just as he stood up, a disgusting voice came from behind him. This pretty boy is not bad. Carry him back. I want to eat meat today. As soon as this was said, the surrounding people discussed even more. Hee, he's actually been targeted by the poison lady. This kid is really unlucky. Looks like there's no need for tomorrow. I don't think he'll live past tonight. Many people were gloating and watching the show from the side. The poison lady was lustful by nature. She relied on the power behind her to capture young and handsome martial artists as her gigolos. However, when she got tired of them, she would kill them mercilessly. Who knew how many young martial artists she had harmed over the years? At this moment, 2 burly men laughed sinisterly and grabbed at Lin Xian. The air trembled, and an ear-piercing sound rang out. Both of them were late-stage spirit-detecting realm martial artists. This grab was very frightening. However, this bit of strength was not enough to deal with Lin Xian. Everyone only saw a blur before 2 miserable screams rang out. The 2 burly men flew back while protecting their wrists and fell to the ground, screaming. What? Good skills. I almost misjudged him. He's actually an expert. Fortunately, I didn't make a move just now. To be able to injure 2 late-stage spirit-detecting realm cultivators in one move, he had to be at the peak. Although he wasn't at the peak, he wasn't weak either. The surrounding martial artists were even more excited because they knew that Madame Du wouldn't let the matter rest. Sure enough, a fat woman at the back who weighed more than 150 kilograms was so angry that her entire body was trembling. The fat on her body was rolling like waves. The plump lips that were painted red opened at this moment, and then a sharp voice sounded. How dare you resist me? Tonight, I'll suck you dry. You guys go. Immediately, 4 strong men in green rushed over to her side. The 4 of them moved like the wind, causing the ground to tremble slightly. However, it was still not enough. Lin Xian's figure flickered like a ghost. In an instant, he appeared in the middle of the 4 and slapped out. Pa pa pa. 4 crisp sounds rang out. Immediately, the 4 people's faces swelled up like pig heads as they were sent flying. His teeth were bleeding all over the ground. This was because Lin Xian had held back. Otherwise, the 4 of them would have been turned into meat paste. Madame Du screamed again when she saw this scene. However, before she could make a sound, Lin Xian appeared beside her and slapped out. Boom! The 150-kilogram fat figure turned into a meatball and flew out, crashing into a house behind them. The house was instantly destroyed. Dust filled the air, and the ground trembled. Everyone was stunned. This youth was too fierce. Did he not know the identity of Madame Du? Hua! Crack! Behind them, countless rocks flew out from the ruins of the house. A fat figure sat up. It was Madame Du. She stared at Lin Xian and screamed, "Brat, do you know who I am? My big brother is the manager of the Green Wolf Gang. You're dead for offending me. Scram or die." Lin Xian was cold, and his voice was like thunder. Madame Du wanted to say something, but her body suddenly trembled and she felt her face heat up. She wiped her hand and found that it was covered in blood. She screamed in horror. She could no longer care about anything else and quickly jumped up and ran into the distance. It was hard to believe that a 150-kilogram woman could run at that speed. The surrounding cultivators were shocked and did not dare to speak. This young man was not even afraid of the Green Wolf Gang. He was too fierce. Of course, there were also people who shook their heads and sneered. They thought that Lin Xian was just a rash brat who had just arrived. One had to know that the Green Wolf Gang was the overlord of Broken Mountain City. Their leader, Zhao Kuan, had even reached the half-step venerable realm. His strength was terrifying and almost no one in Broken Mountain City could compare to him. Although this young man was powerful, he was definitely not a match for Zhao Kuan. In a mansion in the city. This was the mansion of the manager of the Green Wolf Gang. It was very luxurious. The manager of the Green Wolf Gang was a middle-aged man. He had a long face, a thin figure, and a sinister look in his eyes. At this moment, he was admiring the flowers in his garden. At this moment, a fat figure quickly barged in. "Big brother, you have to avenge me." Madame Du was like a mountain of meat. She moved horizontally on the ground and roared crazily. "What's going on?" Manager Du's face darkened when he saw the handprint on the fat girl's face. Soon, Madame Du told him what had happened. "A young man who came here willingly?" Manager Du's expression was cold. "Did you tell him your identity?" "I did." Madame Du added fuel to the fire. Who knew that the kid would not care, and even insulted Big Brother? He's too despicable. He doesn't put Big Brother and the Green Wolf Gang in his eyes at all. "All right, I've got it," Manager Du said in a deep voice. "A small cultivator actually dares to behave atrociously in my territory. He must be tired of living." "Eagle!" Manager Du shouted in a low voice. Whoosh! A figure quickly flew in from outside the courtyard. Like a goshawk, he instantly arrived behind Manager Du. It was a man in black. He was not tall, but his eyes were sharp. His palms, especially, were twice the size of an ordinary person's. Moreover, he wore a metal glove on his palm. It was dark and glowing, making one's heart tremble. "There's something I need you to do." Eagle was Manager Du's hired thug. His cultivation was very high, reaching the peak of the spirit-detecting realm. His pair of black demon eagle claws were extremely sharp. In Broken Mountain City, he was considered a top expert. Usually, he would stay in Manager Du's residence to protect his safety. He would only be called out if there was an emergency. This time, his target was a young man of 18 or 19 years old. Eagle was disdainful. In his opinion, this young man relied on his abundant resources at most to increase his cultivation. If he met a combat expert like him, he would definitely be scared witless. The Green Wolf Gang controlled the entire Broken Mountain City, so he easily found the young man's whereabouts. With a sneer, Eagle soared into the sky like a real goshawk. Chapter 689. Lin Xian was eating at Cloud Pub. On his table was a map of the Blood Realm that he had just bought. There were many martial artists eating around him, all of them wild and wild. They were all discussing the exciting events that had occurred in the Blood Realm. In terms of exciting events, there were only two kinds: killing people and women. Their discussions were inseparable from these two things. At this time, a figure walked into Cloud Pub, causing all the noise to die down. The entire pub fell silent, so quiet that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Those arrogant martial artists looked at the figure at the door, their faces filled with shock, their bodies trembling. "Old Eagle, why is he here?" Everyone was shocked. They knew that Old Eagle was an expert of the Azure Wolf Gang. Normally, he would only be sent to handle extremely difficult matters. But in this pub, was there anyone worthy of Old Eagle taking action? They didn't know. Pong. A throwing knife flew out, nailing itself to Lin Xian's table. It trembled, causing the air to buzz. I'll give you 3 breaths of time to scram. Otherwise, your fate will be the same as his. As he spoke, Old Eagle stared at Lin Xian, a cold light flashing in his eyes. In the next moment, everyone in the pub left with all their might, their speed truly reaching the limit. They knew that this was Old Eagle's habit. He would clear the area before killing someone. And what shocked them even more was that the person Old Eagle wanted to kill was a youth. Who was this youth? He actually angered the Azure Wolf Gang? You don't know? Someone immediately spoke of how Lin Xian had injured Madame Du. Everyone suddenly understood. He dared to attack Madame Du. He's seeking death. Doesn't he know that Madame Du is Chief Steward Du's little sister? Young and impetuous, such a person must be a disciple of a noble family. Does he think that the blood realm is the same as the outside world? What a joke. As everyone was discussing, the pub's door slammed shut. I heard that Old Eagle kills very slowly. He once tortured a martial artist for 3 days before killing him. I wonder how many days it was this time. I think it's about the same this time. That boy will definitely die in pain and despair. Creak. But in the next moment, the pub's door opened. What? It ended so quickly. That's not right. This doesn't fit Old Eagle's personality. Everyone was puzzled. They raised their heads and looked over. Then, their bodies began to tremble as they stood there, dumbstruck. This was because the one who had walked out of the tavern was not Old Eagle, but that handsome and silent youth. The young man narrowed his eyes as if he was sensing something. Then, the corner of his lips curled up and he quickly left. What's going on? Did Old Eagle not kill him? Perhaps this young man's background is so shocking that Old Eagle does not dare to kill him? It's possible. Everyone was guessing, feeling that the young man was more and more mysterious. Should we go in and take a look? There were also some martial artists who found it rather strange that Old Eagle had yet to come out. Soon, a few bold martial artists decided to go in and take a look. 3 silhouettes rushed in quickly, followed by a scream of surprise. Immediately, the surrounding martial artists were bewildered, and they all moved out. When they arrived at the tavern, they were stunned once again, because Old Eagle was dead. Old Eagle lay on the ground, his entire body intact. His eyes were filled with shock, and there was a bloody hole between his brows. It was this bloody hole that took his life. How is that possible? Old Eagle was actually killed? There are no signs of fighting in this room, and we did not hear any sounds of fighting. Could it be that he was killed in one blow? Someone analyzed, and then everyone gasped. If that was the case, then it was too terrifying. One had to know that Old Eagle was a martial artist at the limit of the spirit-detecting realm, and he was also a famous expert in the city. For such a person to be killed in one blow, one could imagine how terrifying the other party was. Could it be that it was not a young man, but some old monster? Everyone's hearts trembled, because they had heard that some old monsters who had lived for hundreds of years liked to appear in the form of young men. They now suspected that the one who killed Old Eagle was also such an old monster. The Green Wolf Gang was very powerful in Broken Mountain City, so they knew of Old Eagle's death immediately. A group of people rushed over in a grandiose manner and surrounded the Cloud Pub. Then, a middle-aged man with a long face walked out of the crowd. This person was Chief Steward Du. Chief Steward Du's expression was very ugly. He had sent out experts, but they were all killed in one blow. This made him very angry, but at the same time, he also felt a trace of fear. Listening to the analysis of the experts in the gang, coupled with Chief Steward Du's own judgment, his expression became more and more unsightly. Moreover, until now, they still had not found out what caused the bloody hole between Old Eagle's eyebrows. Chief Steward Du, what do we do? The Green Wolf Gang members asked. Investigate. We must catch that brat. Chief Steward Du said sternly. No one can challenge our Green Wolf Gang in Broken Mountain City. Yes. The group of Green Wolf Gang members shouted, then quickly went to collect information. Lin Xian naturally did not care about Chief Steward Du and the others' actions. He also did not know that his casual killing of Old Eagle had caused such a great shock to Chief Steward Du and the others. To be honest, he did not put a martial artist like Old Eagle in his eyes. At that time, Old Eagle had used his spirit energy to seal the tavern and was incomparably arrogant. Lin Xian had only dipped his fingertip in a drop of water and then flicked it out. However, that drop of water contained a terrifying sword in tint. Old Eagle was only at the limit of the spirit-detecting realm, so he could not block it and could only fall with despair. Lin Xian knew that after he killed Old Eagle, the Green Wolf Gang would be completely enraged, so he now had a way to completely solve this problem. Lin Xian spread out his spirit energy and covered the entire Broken Mountain City. He quickly searched. Soon after, he discovered that there were 2 places with defensive formations, one of which was especially powerful. He knew that was where the Green Wolf Gang's leader was. Lin Xian's figure flashed, and he disappeared like a gust of wind. The leader of the Green Wolf Gang, Zhao Kuan, was currently enjoying himself in his own palace. He was hugging 2 beauties and drinking wine. As the leader, he only needed to make decisions on important matters. He would leave the trivial matters to Chief Steward Du, and he would enjoy himself and cultivate. Zhao Kuan admired the snake-like waists of the dancers below and laughed loudly. But suddenly, his voice stopped, because he saw a person. A youth was standing in the middle of the palace. The 2 flirtatious women beside him also noticed it. They exclaimed and rubbed their eyes hard. They realized that they weren't dreaming. Zhao Kuan's face immediately sank. "Men, come quickly. What are you doing? Are you all trash?" Zhao Kuan was furious. A stranger had actually snuck into his palace, and even the guards did not know. This made him furious. Moreover, he was even more shocked. One had to know that his palace had a defensive formation. Even if an outsider tried to break in, they would be the first to know. But now, the formation's alarm had not gone off, but a mysterious person had appeared in his palace. This made him uneasy. Chapter 690. Zhao Kuan was shocked as he stared at the young figure in front of him. Although he couldn't sense the other party's cultivation, the fact that he could silently pass through the defensive formation of his residence was enough to show how terrifying the intruder was. "Who are you? What are you doing here? Who told you to come here?" Zhao Kuan suddenly roared as a powerful aura emanated from his body. This aura was very powerful, and it carried a terrifying sound wave that spread throughout the entire space. Immediately, the dancers screamed and fled, and countless warriors rushed over from afar. The Crimson Dragon jumped out and looked at the warriors around him with a disdainful smile. Then, it spat out clouds that enveloped the entire hall. Seeing the Crimson Dragon's means, Zhao Kuan frowned again and said in a deep voice, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" Although the guards outside could enter, Zhao Kuan was still confident in himself as a half-step venerable. "You don't have to care who I am. You just need to remember one thing. While I'm in Broken Mountain City, don't let your men harass me. Otherwise, I don't mind destroying the Green Wolf Gang," Lin Xian said lightly, but his voice was like a sharp sword that pierced into Zhao Kuan's heart. "Destroy the Green Wolf Gang?" Zhao Kuan sneered. "Kid, I think you're out of your mind. How dare you boast so shamelessly? My Green Wolf Gang has 100,000 members. We can drown you with our spit. You dare to say that you'll destroy the Green Dragon Gang? What a joke." The 2 flirtatious women beside him also laughed as if they had heard the funniest joke. "Is that so?" Lin Xian smiled indifferently and then disappeared into thin air. Seeing Lin Xian's actions, Zhao Kuan was shocked. He circulated his spirit energy with all his might to form a defense around him. At the same time, he unleashed the power of his martial soul prototype, ready to attack at any time. Spirit energy surged and shone in all directions. A 30-meter-tall green wolf phantom appeared and roared at the sky, enveloping Zhao Kuan. The sound rumbled and shook the surroundings. The green wolf phantom was mighty and extraordinary like a demonic beast. After unleashing the green wolf phantom, Zhao Kuan laughed wildly as if he had won. This green wolf phantom was the embryonic form of his martial soul, and no one in the entire Broken Mountain City could match it. But in the next moment, the sword light flashed and the azure wolf phantom wailed and fell to the ground. Zhao Kuan's body stiffened as fear appeared in his eyes. This was because a sharp blade was pressed against his neck. At this moment, blood was spurting out from the sharp blade. Moreover, the entire hall was filled with an extremely powerful and fierce aura. Zhao Kuan's entire body froze. He had no doubt that if he dared to move, that sharp blade would cut off his neck. "Spare my life. Please spare my life." Zhao Kuan fell to his knees with a thud. Misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. How dare the Green Wolf Gang offend you? The flirtatious women on both sides were even more frightened and dumbstruck. They never would have thought that the Green Wolf Gang's leader, who was famous throughout Mountain Break City, would be kneeling in front of this mysterious youth like a dog. "There is no misunderstanding," Lin Xian said coldly. "Remember, if the Green Wolf Gang dares to harass me again, you don't need to exist anymore." Yes, yes, yes. I promise that no one will dare to harass you in the future." Zhao Kuan nodded continuously. In the next moment, he felt the sharp blade on his neck disappear, and so did the extremely terrifying aura. However, he still did not dare to move. After a long time, he slowly turned around and realized that the mysterious youth was no longer in the hall. Phew! Zhao Kuan heaved a sigh of relief and sat on the ground. His entire body was drenched in sweat. Facing that youth made him feel like he was facing the leader of the Green Wolf Gang. That's right. Although the Green Wolf Gang dominated the entire Mountain Break City, it was only a branch that belonged to the Green Red Gang. Zhao Kuan wiped off his cold sweat and then shouted, "Everyone gather!" His voice was like thunder, spreading throughout the entire residence. In an instant, countless figures rushed over to this side. Looking at the increasing number of figures, Zhao Kuan said sternly, "Call all the brothers outside back. No one is allowed to go out for 10 days. "Leader, why is that?" Some of them did not understand. "What are you all talking about? If I tell you to do it, then hurry up and do it. Do you all want to rebel?" His voice was terrifying and filled the entire hall with a fierce, murderous aura. "Yes," the gang members hurriedly replied. They did not understand why their leader, who was fine before, was so angry now. There were many disciples in the Green Wolf Gang, and Mountain Break City was not very big. Soon, all of them received the order. Although they were shocked by the order to not go out for 10 days, no one dared to ask. However, there was one exception, and that was Steward Du. At this moment, there were not many people in Steward Du's residence. The experts in Steward Du had all disappeared. This news quickly reached Zhao Kuan's ears. "Where is Steward Du?" Zhao Kuan asked in a low voice. He did not want anything to happen to his right-hand man at this moment. "Leader, Steward Du brought the experts in the gang to take revenge." "Revenge? What revenge?" Zhao Kuan frowned. He had a bad feeling in his heart. Immediately, someone told him about Madame Du. When Zhao Kuan heard that Old Eagle was killed in one move, his entire face turned green. "That's right, it's him. It must be him." Zhao Kuan roared in his heart. He remembered the mysterious young man from before. One had to know that even he could not kill Old Eagle in one move. Only that mysterious young man could do this. Recalling the previous warning, Zhao Kuan broke out in cold sweat again. "Where is Steward Du?" Zhao Kuan asked sternly. 100 Mile Inn. Go to 100 Mile Inn." Zhao Kuan panicked and his face turned ugly. He was praying that Steward Du would not do anything. 100 Mile Inn. Lin Xian had just settled down when he was surrounded by a group of people. The leader was a middle-aged man with a long face. His eyes were sinister like a poisonous snake. Around him were burly men who were dozens of meters tall. Their auras were thick and their bodies were murderous. Although they were dressed differently, each of them had a wolf's head on their heads. They looked ferocious and terrifying. Green Wolf Gang. When the other martial artists in the inn saw this scene, they were so scared that they ran away. Suddenly, there was no one in a 10-mile radius. Everyone hid in the distance and quietly watched. They did not expect Steward Du to bring so many experts. It seemed that the kid was dead for sure. Kid, you are ruthless and arrogant. You actually killed my Green Wolfgang's disciple. Steward Du sneered. I'll give you a chance now. Kneel down and cripple your hands. Let your cultivation be crippled, and then beg me like a dog. If I'm in a good mood, maybe I'll let you go. The surrounding martial artists laughed wildly. They looked at Lin Xian as if they were looking at a dead man. Lin Xian frowned slightly. It seemed that his previous warning did not have any effect. If that was the case, then he could not be blamed. He raised his finger, and a sharp sword aura gradually formed. Chapter 691. Lin Xian was furious. His warning did not work, so it seemed that he could only destroy the Green Wolfgang. Seeing Lin Xian condensing the sword chi, Steward Du and the others were enraged. How dare a young brat seek death in front of so many of them? Go! Destroy him! Steward Du shouted coldly. Beside him, Madame Du also grinned. Brat, how dare you defy me? This is your fate. Behind her, dozens of people drew their swords and sabers. A terrifying aura swept across the area. The wind howled and the murderous aura surged. It was as if ghosts were crying and wolves were howling. At that moment, a furious roar came from afar. Everyone, stop! The voice was even more violent. It was as if thousands of horses were galloping, rolling in the void. Boom! The cultivators who were about to attack all trembled and were pushed back by the sound. Steward Du was even more shocked. Leader? Why is he here? The others were equally shocked. They were all like stone statues and did not dare to move. Leader, it's just killing a brat. You don't have to do such a small thing. Steward Du quickly walked forward and said with a smile. Smack! Zhao Kuan was so angry that his body trembled. He did not dare to look at Lin Xian and slapped Steward Du. Small thing? You're telling me this is a small thing? That slap was full of strength. Even if Steward Du was an ultimate powerhouse, he could not withstand it. With that slap, Steward Du's face turned into a pig's head. Beside him, Madame Du was also stunned. She shrieked, Leader, are you confused? Why did you hit the wrong person? Hit the wrong person? Zhao Kuan stared at Madame Du fiercely. It was this evil fat woman. Without her, he would not have provoked that terrifying young man. Thinking of the scene of him kneeling, Zhao Kuan's face turned ferocious again. He took a step forward and instantly arrived in front of Madame Du. Then he kicked out. Boom! That kick was like a hungry wolf pouncing on its prey. It was unusually fierce. Madame Du could not withstand it. She wailed and turned into a meatball, flying backward. Only after it had pierced through dozens of houses did it fall into the ruins. Everyone was stunned. They could not understand why the leader would do that. However, in the next moment, they were shocked again. Their eyeballs almost fell out. Zhao Kuan turned around. The ferocious killing intent on his face was gone, replaced by a smile. That smile seemed to be trying to curry favor. He walked to Lin Xian's side and asked softly, Hero, are you okay? You're not scared, are you? Whoosh! The surrounding Green Wolfgang disciples felt their heads explode. The usually ferocious helper was actually speaking humbly to a young boy. Dreaming, they must be dreaming. Many people were slapping themselves in the face, trying to wake up from the nightmare. However, to their despair, they discovered that all of this was real. Head Steward Du was even more frightened. He now knew why the helpers were angry. It turned out that it was all because of this young man in front of him. He didn't know who this delicate and pretty young man in front of him was for the gang leader to try to curry favor with him. However, he couldn't care less about these things. Right now, saving his life was the most important thing. Great hero. It's a misunderstanding. Manager Du's face was swollen like a pig's head, and he could not speak clearly. Misunderstanding? Lin Xian sneered. Did I hear wrong? He was furious. If he was an ordinary person, he might have already been killed. Lin Xian would not show mercy to such evil people. You, tell me, what did he do just now? Lin Xian pointed to a person next to him and said. Suddenly, that person was terrified, and his face was very ugly. Speak. Zhao Kuan turned his head, and his face was ferocious and terrifying again. Yes, that martial artist trembled in fear. Head Steward Du said, "He wants the great hero to kneel, break his own arms, destroy his own cultivation, and beg him like a dog. If he's in a good mood, he might let you go." Zhao Kuan's face suddenly darkened. This was a blatant act of seeking death. He looked at Head Steward Du, his eyes full of murderous intent. "Even if you want to die, don't drag me down with you." "Great hero, what do you think we should do?" Zhao Kuan asked carefully. "You'll bear the consequences of your own words," Lin Xian said lightly. Zhao Kuan nodded, indicating that he understood. Then he kicked Head Steward Du and said, "You know what to do." Head Steward Du trembled. He naturally understood what the leader meant, but he was unwilling because until now, he still did not know the identity of this young man in front of him. Seeing Head Steward Du's unwilling eyes, Zhao Kuan was furious. He snorted, waved his hands, and instantly slapped Head Steward Du's arms. Ka-ka. Spiritual energy surged. It was incomparably vast. This blow directly broke Head Steward Du's arms. Head Steward Du suffered a heavy blow and roared crazily, his eyes revealing a look of horror. "I'm not convinced. You still dare to talk back?" Zhao Kuan was angry and kicked out again. This kick, it happened to hit Head Steward Du's abdomen, shattering his spiritual sea cyclone. My cultivation!" Head Steward Du screamed, lying on the ground like a dead dog. He was constantly gasping for breath, his eyes red, staring at Lin Xian. He was not convinced, and at the same time, he was incomparably desperate. Without his cultivation, he was worse than a dog, and all of this was caused by this young man in front of him. He was filled with hatred. Lin Xian looked at Head Steward Du on the ground without a trace of pity. If he did not kill, he would be killed. Especially in a place like the Blood Realm, where only strength mattered, there was no need for pity. "I don't want anyone to hate me, so you should know what to do," Lin Xian said in a deep voice. Hearing this, Zhao Kuan's eyes flashed with a touch of fierceness. A dark green mass of air floated in his palm, carrying a shocking power. With a wave of his palm, the green aura surged and condensed into a wolf claw about 10 feet long in the air. It was lifelike. Boom! Head Steward Du was hit by this power, bleeding from his 7 orifices, and fell to the ground dead. The surrounding martial artists were shocked. They did not expect the leader to kill Head Steward Du personally. In the distance, Madame Du climbed up with difficulty and saw this scene. She immediately screamed in horror. Zhao Kuan's expression was cold as he punched out. The void was torn apart, and the shadow of a green wolf formed by spiritual energy flew in the air and quickly swallowed Madame Du. "Hero, are you satisfied?" Zhao Kuan asked softly. Lin Xian nodded slightly and did not pay attention to this matter. He said, "Do you have a detailed map of the Blood Realm?" Although he had bought one in the city, he was not satisfied with it. "Yes." Seeing that Lin Xian did not pursue the matter, Zhao Kuan secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He took out a blood-red map from his storage ring and handed it over respectfully. "This map can't be said to be the most detailed in the Blood Realm, but it's definitely 10 times better than the ones sold in the shops." Lin Xian took it and found that the map was densely labeled. It was indeed very detailed. After accepting the map, Lin Xian glanced at Zhao Kuan. "Don't let this happen again. Otherwise, you know the consequences." "Yes. Hero, don't worry," Zhao Kuan said respectfully. Lin Xian snorted. Then his figure flashed and disappeared. Chapter 692. Gang Leader, what should we do? Are we just going to let it go? Finally, an old man stepped forward and asked tentatively. Zhao Kuan's face was gloomy. He looked at the 2 corpses on the ground and said coldly, "Go and send the corpses to Flying Tiger City. Tell them that they were killed." Hearing this, all the disciples trembled. The old man was pleasantly surprised. "Don't worry, gang leader. I know what to do. Go. If you do this well, you'll be the manager from now on," Zhao Kuan said lightly. "Yes, I'll do it right away." The old man was ecstatic. He quickly ordered the disciples to carefully place the corpses and then quickly send them to Flying Tiger City. He knew that the gang leader must be afraid of the mysterious young man. Someone who could make the gang leader afraid was either an expert or had a special identity. In short, the mysterious young man was not to be trifled with. The Green Wolf Gang could not take this lying down, so they decided to let Flying Tiger City do it. This was because Steward Dew was the junior brother of the Flying Tiger City's governor. The death of Steward Dew would definitely infuriate the governor. He was a martial artist stronger than Zhao Kuan, a true venerable. Lin Xian did not know about the Green Wolf Gang's little trick. At this moment, he had already left Broken Mountain City and set off according to the bloody map. He had to admit that Zhao Kuan's map was very detailed, at least much more detailed than the one he bought. He found the fastest path and used his movement technique to speed up his journey. The place Lin Xian was at was still at the edge of the Blood Realm, so there weren't many cities. Looking from afar, he could only see a vast expanse of dark red. Half a day later, he suddenly stopped and frowned. Because he had perfected the concept of wind, Lin Xian was very sensitive to the flow of wind around him. At this moment, he felt an extremely unusual wind fluctuation in front of him. This aura was very strong and very violent. It was definitely not an ordinary wind. Soon, Lin Xian saw a red mist on the horizon in front of him. It was like a sea of blood, surging endlessly. Accompanying it was an ear-piercing ghost howl. This is a storm. Lin Xian's pupils constricted. He had never seen such a powerful storm. The red storm was very fast. In the blink of an eye, it had already arrived nearby. Violent winds swept through, uprooting the trees. Countless clouds of dust flew into the sky. They were like giant dragons roaring ferociously in the air. The sky howled as if it was being torn apart. Red cracks appeared as the terrifying power of wind swept out in all directions, destroying everything. Under such circumstances, it was impossible to escape. When an ordinary martial artist encountered a red storm, they could only pray. But Lin Xian was different. He possessed a perfect concept of wind, and his strength was incomparably powerful. In the next moment, strands of azure airflow appeared around him and lifted his body up. It was like a dream and an illusion, drifting indeterminately. With this concept of wind, the impact of the red storm was indeed reduced. Lin Xian drifted along with the red storm. Looking at the raging storm, he suddenly had an epiphany. His concept of wind had already been at the perfection stage for a long time, but he still hadn't reached the wind soul stage. He knew that this kind of thing couldn't be rushed. Unlike the sword soul, the concept of wind was completely comprehended by him alone. There were no shortcuts, so its speed was not as fast as the sword intent. But now, facing the red storm that filled the sky, he suddenly had a trace of epiphany. This process was very short, only a moment, but it was enough. Because he had a direction, he knew the future path of the concept of wind. As long as he comprehended more, it wouldn't take long for him to condense the wind soul. The wind gradually weakened. The red storm was like a giant beast. It came quickly, but it also left quickly. Soon, it completely disappeared from this area, rushing towards other places. And Lin Xian summoned the Crimson Dragon, letting it protect him. Damn, kid, are you a monster? The Crimson Dragon was dissatisfied. You can have an epiphany while rushing. Are you sure you didn't do it on purpose? Although the Crimson Dragon was dissatisfied, it still laid down a defensive array. Lin Xian sat cross-legged on the ground. In his mind, he constantly deduced and recalled the appearance of the red storm, carefully comprehending it. He felt that his understanding of the concept of wind had deepened a lot. At the same time, he created his own wild wind style based on the scene just now. With a wave of his palm, a wild wind rolled up. Monstrous air waves rolled, and a terrifying sound surged. It was as if the red storm had appeared again. The earth cracked, trees flew upside down, and turned into powder in the air. The distant mountain peak exploded, unable to bear this power. This palm was very similar to the red storm, full of a violent and destructive aura. Help! The red storm is here again. In the distance, a scream sounded. It was very miserable and desperate. After Lin Xian heard it, he looked surprised. He waved his hand, and withdrew this move. At the same time, his body swayed, and he rushed towards the source of the sound. The red storm was very terrifying. Everywhere it passed, it was severely damaged. The earth cracked, the cracks spread, and the mountains collapsed. It was a miserable scene, and in these ruins, there was a thin youth who was holding his head and screaming, "God, the red storm only appears once. Why did it appear again after it disappeared this time? God, I don't want to die." The youth screamed. Lin Xian was surprised. He did not expect that there would be someone who could survive the red storm. Lin Xian smirked. Like a gust of wind, he silently came to the bamboo youth's side and then kicked him with the tip of his foot. Suddenly, the bamboo youth trembled and screamed crazily, "Ah, it's here. It's really here." Lin Xian was speechless. The corner of his mouth twitched, and he could only say, "Hey, there's no storm. You don't have to be afraid." Hearing this, the youth on the ground stopped trembling. He quickly turned his head and looked around. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. He sat up and patted the dirt off his body. He stared at Lin Xian and snorted with dissatisfaction. "Why didn't you say there was no storm? Do you want to scare me to death?" This fellow had a grumbling expression. Lin Xian found it funny. At the same time, he was curious. The guy on the ground did not have a very high cultivation. How did he escape the red storm? "Hey, why are you looking at me like that?" The youth on the ground was dissatisfied and stood up. "Although I'm not strong, in terms of survival ability on the Scarlet Plain, even an ultimate warrior might not be as good as me." The youth was very confident. "What's your name?" Lin Xian asked. "Yu Fei," the youth said. Then, he was stunned. "Why should I tell you?" He stared at Lin Xian with an unfriendly expression. "You're so clean. Didn't you encounter the red storm?" "Kid, who are you?" "Newbie." Lin Xian shrugged. "You said your survival ability is strong? Other than the storm, what other dangers are there in the Scarlet Plain?" Yu Fei's eyes widened. He stared at Lin Xian for a few seconds, then said disdainfully, "You're really a newbie. Kid, listen carefully. Chapter 693. There are many dangers in the Scarlet Plains. Yu Fei snorted. Just the Scarlet Storm alone can take most people's lives, not to mention the other dangers. "What dangers?" Lin Xian asked. "Blood wolves, terrifying blood bandits, and the mysterious Scarlet Nether Realm. Every one of them is extremely terrifying. If you encounter them, very few people can leave alive." Yu Fei glanced at Lin Xian and snorted. "Kid, you're lucky that you didn't encounter the Scarlet Storm. Otherwise, you wouldn't even have the chance to stand here and speak." He didn't feel any terrifying aura from Lin Xian, so he thought that he was just an ordinary warrior. Lin Xian smiled and didn't expose him. He then took out the map, compared it, and prepared to leave. At this moment, Yu Fei sneered. "You're really a newbie. How ignorant of you to use such a map in the Scarlet Plains. Kid, I can guarantee that you won't live more than 3 days with this map." "Why?" Lin Xian frowned. He didn't find anything wrong with the map. "Your map looks detailed, but it only marks the geographical environment of the Scarlet Plains. As for the divisions of the forces and forbidden areas, there are no markings at all. This kind of thing is only used to trick newbies like you. No veteran would use it." "Oh?" Lin Xian frowned. "Then what kind of map do you use?" "Kid, look carefully. This is my treasure. Usually, people can't see it even if they want to." Yu Fei said proudly. He then took out a scroll and slowly opened it. The map was huge. At first glance, it didn't seem as detailed as the one in Lin Xian's hand. However, if one looked carefully, they would find that there were many markings on it. For example, Lin Xian found that the entire Scarlet Plains was divided into many regions of different sizes. Each region was marked with a different pattern. Other than that, there were also some places with exclamation marks. "These are?" Lin Xian asked curiously. "This is the distribution of the major forces in the blood field. The areas you see are the current division of the blood field." Yu Fei said, "Do you see that? We're standing in the territory of the Green-Red Society." "Azure Red Society?" "Yes, Broken Mountain City, Flying Tiger City, and 6 other cities all belong to the Green-Red Society. Is the Qinghong Society very powerful? You can say that he's the overlord of this region, but he's nothing compared to the entire Blood Realm. Indeed, Lin Xian realized that the Green-Red Society's sphere of influence was only the size of a fingernail on the entire map. Compared to those palm-sized and larger forces, it was nothing at all. Doesn't Broken Mountain City belong to the Green Wolf Gang? How did it become the Azure Red Society's territory? The Green Wolf Gang is just a branch of the Green-Red Society, and it's the weakest of the 6 branches. You've just arrived, so it's normal that you don't know about this. You'll probably understand after a while, Yu Fei said. Of course, the premise is that you can survive in the Blood Realm. The Green Wolf Gang, the Green-Red Society. Lin Xian looked at the map in his hand with a touch of coldness in his eyes. He didn't know if the other party had deliberately given him such a useless map, but he would let it go this time. If he found out that the Green Wolf Gang had other actions in the dark, he would never forgive them. Although the boss of the Green-Red Society dominates here, he's nothing in the entire Blood Realm. He's not even qualified to enter the Blood Supreme list. Yu Fei snorted softly. Blood Supreme list? What's that? The Blood Supreme list is a ranking of the experts in the Blood Realm. Anyone who can be on the list is at least a venerable. Moreover, the venerables on the list have been through hundreds of battles and rose in the cruelest environment. Their strength is much stronger than the venerables of the same level in other regions. The competition on the Blood Supreme list is very fierce. There will be new changes on the list every few years. It can be said that the speed of change is very fast. Lin Xian was moved after hearing this. It was very difficult to advance to the Venerable Realm, but the Blood Supreme list was updated once every 2 or 3 years. One could imagine how fierce the competition was. Who are the people at the top of the list? Can you tell me in detail? Lin Xian asked. He was very curious about the Blood Supreme list. Well, Yu Fei deliberately dragged his words and looked at Lin Xian with a smile. Plop. Lin Xian threw out a small box of medium spiritual stones. Yu Fei was pleasantly surprised. He quickly put away the box of medium spiritual stones, then cleared his throat and said, Brother, you're straightforward. The top 2 experts are too mysterious. Very few people know them. They only know that they come from the 2 biggest forces. But the third one is very famous. Yu Fei was a little excited when he mentioned the third one. His name is Duan Tao. His strength has reached the peak of the Venerable Realm. It can be said that he's very terrifying. Moreover, his identity is very special. He is the 7th son of the Deputy Palace Master of the Palace of Ares. Peak Venerable Realm, from the Palace of Ares. Lin Xian was shocked. He did not expect the third person on the Blood Supreme list to be so powerful. He had reached the peak of the Venerable Realm. Moreover, what shocked him even more was that Duan Tao was from the Palace of Ares and had an extraordinary status. Duan Tao is very powerful. He is not even 100 years old, but his strength is incredible. In the Blood Realm, except for the top 2 experts, almost no one is his match. So, many people call him Martial Honored. Martial Honored. Lin Xian was shocked. Martial Honored. Martial Honored. This title has extraordinary meaning. However, the top 2 experts did not object. In addition to the influence of the Palace of Ares, Duan Tao's strength was also extremely powerful. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to win the title of Martial Honored. Duan Tao is very low-key. It seems that he only develops in the Blood Realm. However, his son is even more famous. Even outside the Blood Realm, there is no one who does not know him, Yu Fei said. Duan Lingfeng, Prince Lingfeng. You should know him, right? Prince Lingfeng? Lin Xian was stunned. Is he very famous? Pfft. Yu Fei almost vomited blood. Then, he said in exasperation, Brother, are you really from the Tianwu continent? You haven't even heard of Prince Lingfeng's name? Well, I grew up in the mountains, so I don't know much about the outside world. Lin Xian shrugged. So you're a barbarian. Yu Fei curled his lips. Kid, listen carefully. The Tianwu continent has the 4 great princes. They are very talented and powerful. They can suppress people of the same level. Moreover, the four of them are from the House of Kings. They have powerful backgrounds and gathered a group of strong supporters. They form a very powerful force. The people of the continent call them the four great princes of the Tianwu continent. Among them, Prince Lingfeng is the most ruthless. Okay, let's not talk about it. These things are too far away for you. Just treat it as a legend. You will probably never see the four great princes in your life. Yu Fei curled his lips. Then, he pulled out a demon beast's corpse from the ruins. He said in annoyance, "Damn it, we actually encountered a blood storm. How do I explain this when I go back? Damn it, this bloody dragon horse is very expensive. The old man will definitely be furious this time. It's over." Yu Fei looked at the demon beast's corpse on the ground. His face was bitter. Seeing this, Lin Xin smiled. "Brother, do you lack spiritual stones?" Chapter 694. Brother, are you short of spirit stones? Lin Xian asked with a smile. Yu Fei's face was filled with displeasure as he muttered in his heart, "Aren't you talking nonsense?" Suddenly, he froze as he remembered that Lin Xian had casually tossed a box of mid-level spirit stones to him. Could this guy be a rich second-generation heir? Yu Fei stared at Lin Xian as countless thoughts ran through his mind. Then, he laughed dryly and said, "Brother, can you lend me some spirit stones? Don't worry, Yu Fei, will definitely return them." Lin Xian shook his head and smiled. "I won't lend you spirit stones, but you can earn them yourself." Seeing Lin Xian shake his head, Yu Fei's face was filled with displeasure. He thought to himself, "Why did you ask if I didn't lend you spirit stones?" However, his next words surprised him. "How do I earn them?" Yu Fei asked curiously. "You seem to be very familiar with the situation in the Blood Realm. Are you interested in being my guide?" Lin Xian said, "Don't worry, I will definitely pay you well." The situation in the Blood Realm was more complicated than he had imagined, so he hoped to find a smart guide. Yu Fei was such a weak martial artist, yet he was able to survive the Red Storm. This was enough to prove his terrifying experience and survival skills. "Pay." Yu Fei's eyes darted around. "How much can you pay?" "The price of 2 crimson dragon horses." Lin Xian held out 2 fingers. "Really?" Yu Fei sucked in a breath of cold air. One had to know that 1 blood dragon horse was worth 30,000 mid-grade spirit stones. 2 of them would be 60,000 mid-grade spirit stones. He couldn't believe it because he had spent a lot of effort to gather enough money to buy this horse. Now, he could earn 60,000 mid-grade spirit stones just by leading the way. This was definitely a good thing that had fallen into his lap. "Wait a minute." Yu Fei suddenly became alert. "Where are you going? Let's make it clear first. If you want to go to some forbidden place, I won't lead the way." "Don't worry, it's not a forbidden place. I'm going to Senmu College." Senmu College. Yu Fei breathed a sigh of relief. He sized up Lin Xian again and shook his head slightly. Senmu College only recruited geniuses and elite fighters. Not just anyone could get in. He didn't sense any terrifying aura from Lin Xian, so he didn't think that Lin Xian could get into Senmu College. However, none of this had anything to do with him. All he had to do was bring her to Senmu College. "All right, I promise you," Yu Fei said, "but you have to accompany me to Feihu City first. I have to hand over the goods before I can take you to Senmu College." "No problem." Lin Xian agreed quickly. He knew from the map that Feihu City was the only way to Senmu College. "Wait a minute, I have to bring the bloody dragon horse with me." Yu Fei pulled the horse's leg on the ground. "No problem." Lin Xian patted the demon beast pouch and let Xiao Jin out. Croak. Xiao Jin had been cultivating in the demon beast pouch for the past few days. Now that it was let out, it cried out excitedly. "Damn, what a huge frog." Yu Fei saw a huge shadow next to him and couldn't help but look back. No wonder he's from a rich family. He has such a powerful demon beast. It's much better than the bloody dragon horse. Yu Fei was extremely envious. Soon, he jumped up. Lin Xian patted Xiao Jin's head, and the latter turned into a ray of golden light and jumped out quickly. Feihu City, one of the 6 branches of the Cyan Red Society. Its strength was ranked in the top 3. At this moment, in the huge and magnificent mansion of the city governor, a solemn atmosphere enveloped the area. 2 corpses were laid side by side on the white jade floor. They were covered in blood and beyond recognition, but one could still tell that they were a man and a woman. Above the main hall, a burly man strode over. Every step he took made the ground tremble. This man was the governor of Feihu City, Tianhu. He looked at Steward Du on the ground with a gloomy face. Who killed junior brother Du? Tianhu's voice was like thunder, causing the air to tremble. Governor Tian, it's this guy. Below him, an old man in green clothes said in a deep voice. Then, he flipped his palm and used his spiritual power to form a scroll in the air. On the scroll was a handsome young man, who looked exactly like Lin Xian. This little thief killed Steward Du in the Broken Mountain City and then escaped. Our leader has given the order to kill him, but there are still no clues so far. Looking at the scroll in the air, Tian, whose eyes shone with a cold light. Who is this guy? What's his background? This guy had some friction with Steward Du's sister, so I don't want to listen to these useless reasons, Tian, who suddenly shouted. Just tell me who he is and what's his background. As for the reason, I don't need to know. No matter what the reason is, as long as he killed my junior brother, I'll make him pay with his blood. The old man in the Green Wolf Gang's eyes flashed. This young man seems to be a newcomer to the Blood Realm. We don't know his identity. A newcomer to the Blood Realm? Tian, who closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Pass down my order. From today onwards, strengthen the patrols in the city. Once you find this little thief, report it immediately. At the same time, go to the other nearby cities and offer a high reward to hunt down this little thief. I don't believe that he can escape from my tight encirclement. Junior brother Du, don't worry. I'll avenge you. Tian, whose voice was cold. All right, you can go back first. Tell Zhao Kuan to report to me as soon as there's any news. Don't worry, City Lord Tian. The Green Wolf Gang will do our best to find him, the old man said. Then, he bowed respectfully and quickly turned to leave. This Tian, who is just like the rumors. He's vengeful, but this is good. With him around, that little thief won't be able to escape. No one who dares to provoke the Green Wolf Gang can live. The old man sneered. Then, he turned into a green light and quickly disappeared. The Flying Tiger City was twice the size of Broken Mountain City, and the buildings were more majestic. The tall walls were all made of black stones. The 2 pitch-black doors were 10 feet tall and were very thick. At this moment, they were completely open. On both sides of the door stood 2 rows of guards in black armor. Their bodies were tattooed with white tiger stripes. From afar, they looked like they were wearing tiger skin. These were the military guards in the city. Unlike Broken Mountain City, the Flying Tiger City was strictly managed by the military. Moreover, the people in the city were not so extreme. It looked much safer. Lin Xian stood in front of the city gate. He had already put away Xiao Jin. At this moment, he was squinting his eyes and watching. Next to him, Yufei also put away the bloody dragon horse in the storage room. Brother Xian, the entrance fee to the Flying Tiger City is 3,000 middle spiritual stones. As long as you pay, you don't have to pay anymore. Yufei explained. 3,000 middle spiritual stones? Lin Xian nodded. It was indeed much cheaper than Broken Mountain City. Then, Yufei walked forward and took out the city pass to show it to the guards. Then, he safely entered the city. Lin Xian rolled up his sleeves and slowly walked forward. When the leader of the Flying Tiger Troop saw Lin Xian, he was stunned. In the end, he suppressed the shock in his heart and looked at Lin Xian carefully. After a while, his eyes flashed and he was even more certain of his thoughts. However, he did not act rashly. Instead, he asked in a deep voice, Halt, do you have an entry pass? No. Lin Xian shook his head and took out 3,000 middle spiritual stones. Take it. This is an entry pass. In the future, you can enter the Flying Tiger City with this pass. The leader said. Lin Xian nodded and took the pass. Then, he walked into the Flying Tiger City. Chapter 695. Looking at Lin Xian's back, the captain's eyes turned cold. Go. Report to the city lord that the person on the wanted list has appeared. Everyone else, close the city gates and activate the forbidden space array. We can't let that kid escape. Then, the corners of his mouth turned cold. There is a path to heaven, but you don't want to take it. There is no door to hell, so don't blame us since you are courting death. Lin Xian walked into the Flying Tiger City. Looking at the lively scene on the street, his brows slightly wrinkled. His soul force was outstanding, so he could naturally perceive the abnormalities of the Flying Tiger Army, especially the captain. Although he concealed it well, it didn't escape Lin Xian's eyes. From the expressions of those people, Lin Xian saw shock and hidden killing intent. Although he didn't know what was going on, he was still vigilant. Yu Fei, who was in front of him, had a face full of excitement. From time to time, he would introduce the city to Lin Xian. At this time, a noise came from behind. Then, the whole ground trembled slightly. Countless black figures rushed out like a flood, instantly breaking through the crowd. The martial artists on the street were shocked and retreated one after another. That flood was like a fierce beast, very fast. In a flash, Lin Xian was surrounded. F***CK. No way. The Flying Tiger Army? Yu Fei saw these people. His face turned pale with fright. He naturally knew how powerful these people were. These martial artists in black armor were the Flying Tiger Army, and Wu was the city's law enforcement officer. They belonged to the city lord's mansion, so no one dared to oppose them in the city. Usually, the Flying Tiger Army was rarely mobilized. They would only be mobilized for special matters. But today, they had surrounded Lin Xian. Brothers, are you looking for the wrong person? Yu Fei said in a trembling voice. We are two rookies. We can't cause any trouble, let alone alert you brothers. Get lost. One of the martial artists in black armor kicked Yu Fei away. This has nothing to do with you. We are looking for him. Immediately, countless gazes were like cold spears as they stared at Lin Xian. Powerful auras gushed out from them. These auras formed a special field. This was the combined might and killing intent of the entire Flying Tiger troop. It was extremely shocking, and the surrounding cultivators retreated in fear. Yu Fei fell to the ground with a face full of pain. He did not know what Lin Xian had done to provoke the Flying Tiger Army. Lin Xian, on the other hand, was very calm. He had a slight smile on his face, as if the invisible and terrifying pressure around him had no effect on him at all. What an ostentatious display. What's the matter? Lin Xian asked calmly. Cut the crap and come with us. The tone of these people was very harsh. Their bodies flickered with black light, and the long sabers in their hands were even brighter. This was not a conversation at all, but an order. What if I don't agree? Hearing the other party's forceful tone, Lin Xian's expression darkened. He was not someone who could be ordered around by just anyone. Kid, I advise you to be sensible. Otherwise, we will cut off your limbs and drag you to the city lord's mansion like a dog. You don't have a choice. Be obedient and surrender. Perhaps you will suffer less. These people's voices were cold, and their bodies were full of killing intent. Lin Xian frowned slightly, and a sword light flashed in his eyes. These people from the Flying Tiger troop dared to be disrespectful to him. If it was under normal circumstances, he would have killed them instantly. However, this was the Flying Tiger City, and these people were the city lord's subordinates. Moreover, he did not know what had happened, so he did not want to have a conflict with the forces here unless it was absolutely necessary. Seeing that Lin Xian did not move, these people were furious. Damn, kid, you dare to disobey the city lord's order. Believe it or not, I will kill you right now. Kill me? Lin Xian snorted coldly, and his face turned cold. He took a step forward and said sternly, I'm standing right here. Try to move. With a step forward, Lin Xian's aura changed drastically. A sharp and powerful aura gushed out, as if a peerless divine sword had been unsheathed. He had already condensed his martial soul, and he even dared to kill a reverend, let alone a few people from the Flying Tiger troop. This aura was not something these people could contend with. Moreover, he did not make a move because he did not want to cause trouble. Now that the other party was so arrogant, did they really think he was a pushover? This aura was extremely terrifying, like a demonic mountain, pressing down on everyone's hearts, making it difficult for them to breathe, especially those from the Flying Tiger Troop. When Lin Xian's gaze swept past them, it was as if countless divine swords had pierced through their bodies. It was a kind of trembling that came from the soul. The originally arrogant Flying Tiger Troop was now trembling like little white rabbits. Their bodies were trembling slightly, and they did not dare to look directly at Lin Xian. Lin Xian smiled disdainfully, retracted his aura, and stood with his hands behind his back. After a long time, those from the Flying Tiger Troop came back to their senses. When they thought of their previous performance, they were so angry that their bodies trembled, and their eyes seemed to spit fire. The Vice Domain Chief, in particular, was so angry that his face turned black. He had brought the troops here to show off his power and make the other party obediently give up. However, he did not expect that with so many people, they would be intimidated by the other party's gaze. Moreover, it was in front of so many people. How were they going to survive in the future? Thinking of this, the Vice Domain Chief's face darkened, and his gaze was as cold as a poisonous snake's. He instantly pulled out the long saber at his waist and slashed it at Lin Xian. "Reckless dog, how dare you threaten us? Today, I'll show you how powerful I am." The blade was sharp, and it was like a silver waterfall dancing in the air. The void split open, and the air was mercilessly torn apart, as if silver divine lightning was shining. The Vice Domain Chief was an ultimate powerhouse. His attack was filled with anger, and he did not hold back at all. This attack was so powerful that the surrounding warriors gasped in shock, especially Yu Fei, who covered his eyes and did not dare to watch. At the same time, his heart was filled with endless sympathy and pity. This was because, in his opinion, Lin Xian would definitely not be able to withstand this attack. Crack! Looking at the terrifying blade, Lin Xian smiled disdainfully, then he struck out with his palm. In an instant, the saber radiance in the air shattered with a loud bang. It could not block the attack at all. Then, the shadow of the palm landed quickly, and a large handprint appeared on the Vice Domain Chief's face. His body was sent flying, and he spun 3 times in the air before landing on the ground. Then, the crisp sound of a slap could be heard in all directions. Hearing that sound, many warriors gasped and touched their cheeks unconsciously. This was because just by looking at the situation, they knew that the slap was extremely painful. You dare to hit me?" The Vice Domain Chief crawled up from the ground with difficulty and stared at Lin Xian. His eyes were filled with viciousness and fear. Half of his face was swollen, and more than half of his teeth were broken. Fresh blood dripped onto his armor, making him look extremely demonic. Even the words he spoke were somewhat unclear. "Why wouldn't I dare? Who do you think you are? How dare you show off in front of me?" Lin Xian snorted coldly. "Boy, you're dead. I want you dead. I'm going to chop off your limbs and feed you." Before he could finish speaking, a crisp sound of a slap was heard. In the next moment, the Vice Domain Chief spun like a top, and the blood from his teeth scattered in the air. This slap directly turned the Vice Domain Chief's head into a pig's head, and all his teeth fell to the ground. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.